Welcome to SicEm365 Radio.
Well, I think a big thing is the versatility they have in their offense. When Manek on the floor, it really gives you, at times he plays the center, gives you five guards out there, and a lot of teams don't play with five guards.
SicEm365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
And now, without further ado, the 2020 winner of the Heisman Trophy is Devontae Smith of the University of Alabama.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Play action. Jones to the end zone. Touchdown, Devontae Smith.
Have you downloaded the SicEm365 Radio app? Do it today on the App Store and Google Play.
Mac Jones to the back corner. Touchdown, Alabama. And it's Devontae Smith.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. It's 3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon, on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon in Central Texas. Baylor basketball tonight playing Oklahoma. Tip-off at the Farrell Center at about 8 o'clock. We'll hear in just a second a little bit from Scott Drew, but also a conversation with assistant or associate head coach Jerome Tang. Baylor and number two Baylor home against Oklahoma. They can fill it up, and they have University High's Umoja, who's a part of the team that has been a huge part of what Oklahoma's done. They can fire it away. They have at times, they have a little bit of size. They got some thickness as well, but most of the time it is like camp out outside the line or be on the perimeter and just fire away with Lon Kruger, the Hall of Fame coach. Jerome Tang was great. He said he turned down the Baylor. At the end, I said, hey, thanks for your time. He goes, I want to let everyone know I'm glad that they found Jeff Grimes because I just felt like I wanted to stay in basketball. I turned down the opportunity to be the offensive coordinator. He was having fun. It's a relationship between coaching staffs. He's never met Jeff Grimes, but loved what he heard from Phil Bennett. He listens to our show and others that have talked about Jeff Grimes. That's Jerome saying we'll have that at the bottom of the hour. Let's do this real quick. The Heisman Trophy, Devontae Smith, Alabama. So there was a time up until through the 2008 season, Alabama had not had a single Heisman Trophy winner, which is hard to imagine. And yet again, some of their great players, you see, okay, somebody else was great, or 5 people were great that year. Johnny Musso, the running back, I think he was a finalist, and I believe that Johnny Rodgers edged him out, or maybe it was Jim Plunkett, or maybe it was whoever else. But they've had some great players. But they've now had how many since Mark Ingram, now Derrick Henry, Devontae Smith? Is there someone else I'm missing?
No, that's the 3 that they've got now. They've got up to 3. And it is weird. Alabama might have been, even back in the day, they might have been when those great teams with Bear Bryant. There's 10 great guys on that team, so they don't really think about one guy sticking out. And they
Ken Stabler, Joe Namath, but again, they were pretty good. But some of them they're good, but they weren't like Heisman Trophy good.
Yeah, and now of course we live in the age of numbers.
Yeah
so sometimes it would be hard, so Alabama's got this great team that wins the national championship in the 60s and 70s. But does anybody have really big numbers because they just came at you in waves? And then there's another guy at another school who had 1,600 yards rushing and over a 9 to 10 game schedule. That's enormous. So he wins the Heisman Trophy. So that's probably the difference.
If you guys would have had a Heisman vote, now that you know how it went, it was Smith, Lawrence, Mac Jones, and Kyle Trask. If you would have had a vote, how would you have voted? Armstrong, including you, how would you have voted?
I would have voted for Trevor Lawrence. His stats aren't as good, but I just think he was just deserving. But I'm glad Devontae Smith won. I'm glad it's someone other than a QB. For sure.
I would have gone in this order: Devontae Smith, Trevor Lawrence, and Mac Jones.
Yeah, I think that would have been my order. I mean, Devontae Smith would have been my winner, but, at the same time, I know there's a lot of arguments for receivers in the past who had similar numbers who got overlooked, but I think you look at the games, the size of the games, the enormity of the games Alabama's played in, and he shows up in them. Like, he's not somebody who fades away. So, Corey Coleman had that great year where he was just on fire, won the Blitnikoff, and there's been a couple of others here and there that were pointed out where I saw people going, well, hey, how did this guy get overlooked when he had similar numbers to Devontae Smith? I just think it was a stage, and, I didn't like the Mark Ingram Heisman win. I didn't really believe in that one. Derrick Henry, I believe, was the other one, right, that you mentioned. That
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I get that. But I thought the Mark Ingram one was really weak, honestly. This one, though, I'm cool with it. He was deserving. And, Trevor Lawrence, had he maybe played a full season, probably would have won it, but he didn't. And that's just the way that it broke. So, yeah, he'll end his career without a Heisman Trophy.
If, in fact, they had you vote after last weekend's semifinals, would Justin Fields have been on your radar?
No, because I watched him a couple times, and he did not play well at all.
Yeah, the game against Indiana was hit and miss. It was a couple Northwestern.
Yeah, he didn't have
he was fantastic, of course, in that win against who was it? Against Clemson. But, and then one of the reasons I looked at his when I voted, and I do have a vote, and I'm very proud of that, is that he had only played like 5 or 6 games. And I'm sorry, it wasn't like Dabo Sweeney ranking him 11th. I didn't do that. Had it been an extended top, maybe 5 or 6 or so, Justin Fields would have been a part of my conversation. Do you have Armstrong? I asked you not to have it. You probably didn't have to have it. You ever get done my top 3? Don't worry about it then. My top 3 was exactly how the national vote was. Now, I have to put an asterisk next to that. I think that's who my top 3. I know I voted for Devontae Smith. Paul, Craig, and I'm not allowed to share my vote. I just we went back and forth a little bit. But I did struggle with 2, 3, and 4. I struggled in a way with Lawrence and Mac Jones. And then I also, at times, because I think I might have been watching Alabama play, and Najee Smith, was having a big year as well. Najee Harris, excuse me, having a big year as well. But I did go right down the party line. I saw a lot of people angry with Heisman voters because they had Trevor Lawrence number 2. and not number 3 or 4, or there were some angry because he didn't win the Heisman Trophy. The best, most dynamic player in college football this year, the one who had the biggest impact this year, was Devontae Smith, in my opinion.
Did those people watch the game last week? Because I know that Trevor Lawrence wasn't getting a whole lot of help around him at times, but that was not a real glorious way to end your college football career. I don't know about being angry about him not winning it, and with Justin Fields going back to him, so he played in, 8 games, and he had 2 games where that Northwestern win in the a final of the regular season, or no, that was a Big Ten championship game, excuse me. They won 22-10. He was 12 of 27 for 114 yards and 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. So, that's not a Heisman right there in the Big Ten championship game. He also had the game earlier in the year against Indiana that they won by a touchdown, where he threw 2 touchdowns and 3 picks and was barely over 50% passing. So you only play, 6 games, 7 games, and you have 2 performances. That's a third of your season right there, where you're throwing 5 picks. So I couldn't have voted for him for that. Lawrence I get, but I feel like Lawrence is as much just reputation as anything, almost like he deserved to win it just because, he's Trevor Lawrence and he was supposed to win it at some point before his career was over. I don't know that he did anything this year where I'm like, gosh, he really got screwed there.
Well, I mean, just because you're the best quarterback, Peyton Manning didn't win it, right? Peyton Manning didn't win it, and it's because when Peyton Manning was playing, there was always one guy who had just that unique of a story around him. Whether it was Charles Woodson or Ricky Williams or whoever it was that, had a, Danny Werfel won one year, and because Danny Werfel beat him and all these different things, that went into that. So I don't think that it's, it's sometimes it's just about Trevor Lawrence, you pick out random season in college football in the last 20 years, and he might win the thing. But the seasons he was playing in, unfortunately for him, there was one more. Last year, it was Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Joe Burrow won. If you voted for anybody else than Joe Burrow, you clearly had some sort of bias against Joe Burrow personally. So.
But I also thought, and this is who we are now, because everyone wants to bitch about something, excuse my French language and English, but here's one of the things I saw. You had a guy from Alabama win the Heisman Trophy, and he won it pretty convincingly. Mm-hmm. And now people want to then tear apart 2 and 3. Well, how come you won the Heisman Trophy, and whether you're 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, you were invited to New York, whether you're Trask or you're Mac Jones or Trevor Lawrence? We just want to argue. That's like if we open up the college football playoffs from 4 to 6 or 6 to 8, just like the NCAA tournament, there's still going to be people who complain about something.
If you're sitting there arguing and getting super angry over 2 and 3 in the Heisman Trophy voting, go take a walk outside. And then when you return home, go look in the mirror and judge yourself, because that is a silly thing to get upset over.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to knock sports fans' passions, but the people who take it way to the extreme or get super bitter or ugly about it, I just feel like they must not have a lot going on in their personal lives to get that upset and emotional over something. I'm talking about the real extreme folks who typically don't reveal their names, who typically try to hide behind the mask of social media. But, I mean, those people don't deserve attention, quite frankly, because the majority of people out there were celebrating Devontae Smith and talking about how great it was that a wide receiver won it for the first time in a while.
So what you do, if you don't know this, and Robert Cessna, who works at the Bryan Eagle down in Bryan College Station, it was a couple of 3 years ago, reached out to me about being a Heisman voter. I was stunned and honored and thrilled. And it is a little bit, you're like, I wish I had that vote. And I'm fortunate to be a part of a lot of these things. But it does make you a little bit, it makes you have to think a little. You got to be careful. Like, for example, if in fact, let's just say this, if I would have voted, even if I meant it, if I would have voted Kyle Trask 1, and then Devontae Smith 2, and then Mac Jones 3, I would have been eviscerated. I would have been hammered. But Devontae Smith did not get every single first place vote, and obviously he got a bunch of them, and he got mine. But you really, you can't, and so, there's the possibility of somebody who works in a certain region or covers a certain school. I just felt like I thought about it. And Craig and Paul I shared some ideas with them because it's a serious deal. And then when you do get that posted, and I did have Devontae Smith and then, of course, Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones. But I debated it at 2 and 3. There's no debate about number 1. He was and it's 4 wide receivers in the history of the game. Rodgers, Brown, who we had on yesterday, Desmond Howard, and now Devontae Smith.
I would like to see and this is kind of like the dream world, scenario where we all get, free medicine and there's no pandemics and all that. But my dream world scenario of college football and voting on the Heisman Trophy in particular is that, it's not just quarterback, running back, wide receiver that are eligible for this thing or that people vote on, that somebody looks deeper and be like, hey, is this left tackle the best player in the country this year? I'll call it the Ndamukong Suh rule is, the scariest player that every team had to prepare for that year was not Mark Ingram, it was Ndamukong Suh. And because he plays a position that's not heavy on stats, some people say, I don't know how he can affect the game. Well, why don't you ask every quarterback he's ever laid out how he affects the game?
Yeah, I feel like offensive line is an area where the numbers people out there would do them a great service if there was actually a way to grade them that was actually put out there, like the day after games or something like that, because there aren't stats. But and it would take a team of people, and I know that there's certain websites that track O-line and things like that, but if you could actually put forth like, hey, this guy had 6 pancakes and this guy had, gave up no sacks or whatever, we only read that in like a little bio, but we don't really know that when we're talking about linemen. So it's just harder to put forth their stats because it's not as simple as a catch and run or a touchdown. So if there was any group out there, because there's obviously a lot of people that love O-line, that could somehow put together that data in a timely fashion. As an Earl Campbell Award guy, I would gladly put people on there that are big-time offensive linemen because it's an Offensive Player of the Year award, but there's no way to judge those guys. There's no way to go, hey, the A&M left tackle deserves to be Player of the Week this week. Well, how do I know that?
It's as much as if ever there was going to be an offensive lineman. Dave Remington was one. You mentioned Ndamukong Suh, and there's been a couple.
Orlando Pace.
There is a grading type number. Like he graded 90%. Some coaches grade much more difficult than others. It's like tackles. I have, as you guys know, compiled a bunch of all-state, all East and Central Texas high school football, and I'm going through that right now, and it's, and I've got almost the entire list ready to go. But you might have a guy that's a coach at Longview or a coach that's at Temple, and they might be much tougher on their grading of offensive linemen, and even more so tackles. I get sometimes nominations for the week, players of the week, where you might have somebody send me, and there's 2 or 3 schools in particular where I got to we'll have 20 tackles for 3 different players. And that's when the assists jump in. How many solo tackles? Hey, if you double team a guy in a tackle, you should get an assist on that. But man, sometimes those numbers that come into me are a little bit silly to me.
I would say you need something like you have with everything, because in college football you have a stat crew, which doesn't do, during the game you can't do the stat crew because it happens so fast. You just need to know, 17 threw it to 9 for 19 yards and 45 tackled him. Those are the things you need. But when you go back and review the next day, which everyone does, you need a third party to just say, okay, here's how the lineman graded out. Here's what this was. And the defensive linemen, for, to their, benefit, have a couple statistics that can go their ways, tackles and sacks and fumble recoveries. They can fumbles. They can get interceptions if they can. Well, offensive linemen have nothing, so you'd have to have somebody go through and say, look, Connor Galvin graded out 77% today, or whoever it was, and then he's the first one that popped into my mind. But, that's the offensive lineman that, how he did that day, and then you'd know.
Yeah, there was one time with the Earl Award where I guess Connor Williams had come back and he didn't give up a sack, and they made note of it because, he's a Texas guy, so he gets automatic extra attention. And, they were kind of, I think, feeling pretty good about things at the times. I was like, oh my gosh, Connor Williams is back. And he came back and he had a great game. And I remember somebody suggesting to me hey, we should put him on the honorable mention this week. And I'm like, well, I can't really debate it because, how am I going to say no? There's no stats to point to. But I would love to include linemen every week because I'm sure there's a guy from Texas somewhere around the country because there's certainly receivers, quarterbacks, and running backs and tight ends. So there's got to be linemen
that are from Texas, high school Texas. Yeah, exactly.
But I just don't know how to do that because I can't grade it. There's nothing to put a number. So if they could somehow put together something like that again would come out on a Monday or something like that, that would be great. I think it would be great for linemen, and I think they obviously deserve more love, but we are stuck with the Heisman of it's a running back, a receiver, or a quarterback. That's just the way that it is. If you're a defensive player,
that's why I like last night. It wasn't.
But if you're a defensive player, I don't know what to tell you, quite frankly, because I thought Ndamukong Suh should have won the Heisman, and I don't know too many who could have better years than he had that time. So. But I'm glad that they switched it up this year.
Here's an example. Gavin Kaiser He's an offensive tackle at Salado. So I get this from Alan Hare, the head coach. Graded 98%. That means they grade him every week, every game. They probably played, 12 or 13 games before they lost to Carthage. 36 pancakes, 12 cut blocks, led the way for 2 1,000-yard rushers, and da-da-da-da-da-da. Those are the only stats you really have. Here's another one. Robert Allen from La Vega, rated 96%, 48 pancakes, 4-year starter, 2 state championship game appearances, winning one. And so it's kind of hard. That's about it. That's all you have. And those are just some of the nominations we have. Now, we're going to hear from Jerome Tang in a minute. Here's Scott Drew on Oklahoma's offense. And they will spread you out. Not that they don't have some force inside, but they're going to try to spread you out, and they're going to try to shoot it, launch it. And they did in the win against West Virginia, and they will sometimes go with 5 guards.
Well, I think a big thing is the versatility they have in their offense. When Manic on the floor, it really gives you, at times he plays the center, it gives you 5 guards out there, and a lot of teams don't play with 5 guards. So it makes you be that much more attentive in transition, because anyone can hit a 3 on you. And at the same time, in the half court, it makes you really spread out, and you have to make sure that you're getting to the shooters.
So that's Scott Drew on the guards. And Manic, I remember him. He's 15 points a game. They got a couple of guys over double figures. And then, well, there's a problem with this young man from University High. He can shoot it, Paul. He had 8 threes. He was the player of the week in the Big 12. And he played at University High, Scott Drew, on a Umoja.
I think 11 threes last game. But somebody who can really score. He's a great young man. Had a chance to get to know him, and excited for his success. Obviously followed him at North Texas, and but somebody that is capable of putting 30 up on any given night.
So that's Scott Drew. Oklahoma tonight, tip at 8 o'clock at the Farrell Center. We'll hear from Jerome Tang. We're going to do the break and then Jerome Tang?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's go to a couple other notes.
By the way, on the Heisman, did y'all see the blowback Texas got for celebrating the Heisman winner?
Yes. They put
out a graphic of Steve Sarkisian and was basically saying, it was a big graphic, and it had the Heisman Trophy, and then it had a silhouette or whatever picture of him behind it. Said, Steve Sarkisian, congratulations. And in 2020, Steve Sarkisian's record-setting offense produced 2 Heisman Trophy finalists, including winner Devontae Smith. And to say that people reacted to that in a major way would be putting it lightly, because even Texas fans were like, this is the most Aggie thing I've ever seen.
Well, as a matter of fact, that's exactly what A&M did when they put out a tweet a couple years ago about Jimbo Fisher coached 5 first-round defensive back picks, and they're like, well, not there.
Yeah, so Texas is right that Steve Sarkisian coached those guys, but he wasn't even there to recruit those guys. He coached them for like a couple years, and so I just, I get what they were trying to go for, but it did not, even from their own fan base, get much of a great reaction. It was funny.
You try to get as much of the edge. I don't think Baylor ever said too much, but, Dave Aranda coming off a national championship, you want to kind of use that if you can. But it was there was like Sarkisian, now, here it is right here. And then the logo. Yeah. And he is their new coach, but that's a little over. Armstrong, what do you think? Your thoughts about that right there?
Yeah, it says his record-setting offense produced 2 Heisman Trophy finalists. I mean, it's not a terrible idea, but I don't know. It just looks really bad. The way the graphic is designed makes it look like they're claiming a Heisman.
Yeah.
I mean, stating that fact is not bad per se, but the way they did it is terrible.
They've already got him in a UT shirt, and to me, that's something that Steve Sarkisian says when he's going to recruit a guy who's the next potential Devontae Smith, is that, hey, I've coached Heisman finalists.
Right.
I know how to do it.
And that graphic's absolutely geared towards recruits, but I don't think they got the reaction they were looking for there.
NFL, no fans for the most part, right? Cowboys had as much as 30,000 at a game or whatever it might have been. From 2010 to 2019, home teams in the NFL won just under 57% of all their home games. This year, they were 127 and 128 in a tie.
Yeah,
fans make a difference.
There's no home field advantage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all there is to it, and there's no doubt that with the lack of energy, there's not those waves that you ride during the course of a game. Or if you make a big play, you get that explosion from the sideline and 200 people in the stands, but it's not the same as 20,000. I mean, that's just – we as human beings, like, we're so complex, and I think we kind of forget it sometimes, but there's really unique things about us, and like the way we push energy towards each other and feed off of each other and things like that. It's kind of incredible, really. But when that's eliminated, I mean, you just have two teams on a field, and the only difference really is that you had to drive there or you're already there, and that's really it. But when you're walking into a place and you're coming out for warm-ups and there's already 25,000 people heckling you and getting on you, or when you're trying to call plays and their boos are drowning out your calls, that all factors in.
In fact, tonight you can have, I think, as many as about, 2,500 or so if you want to go inside the Farrell Center. I think that's the number. Now, it's going to look a little different when it's spread out in all the various sections. Now, 2021 Heisman Trophy watch list. Bijan Robinson's name's on it, the Texas running back who kind of flashed a little bit towards the end of the year, and he is obviously special. Isaiah Spiller, A&M's running back, he's on it. But these other names to me it's kind of like blah. I'm not saying they're not good. Max Johnson, LSU, the quarterback. Emory Jones from Florida.
They haven't even played yet.
Yeah, this is a lame list already.
Is it Michie, the wide receiver from Alabama? Bo Nix of Auburn, Brock Purdy, Iowa State.
Bo Nix.
How do you feel about Bo Nix there?
Armstrong. Matt Corral, is that right? From Ole Miss.
Okay. Matt Corral is going to have 25 interceptions to 37 touchdowns.
But those are the names. That is, which means somebody else. It's always somebody you don't think of. That nobody would have said Devontae Smith was going to win the Heisman. I bet his odds were very, very low.
Most people thought he was the second wide receiver on that team because of Waddle.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was working on something else. Did you say Bo Nix is on that list?
This is a 2021
that is a joke.
Heisman
that is an actual
list.
Joke.
Yeah. No, I'm dead serious.
12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions for Bo Nix this past season.
If you watch him play, you're like, you laugh.
Yeah, I know.
For every brilliant kind of like off-the-cuff type of play that he'll make some blundering plays. I mean, he's a good player, but he is not a Heisman Trophy winner in any way in my mind.
No
Trevor
way.
Lawrence is turning pro. Not a surprise. He'll be perhaps the number one pick overall in the draft. Jacksonville has the number one pick.
Do you think Urban Meyer will be his coach?
You know what? The Khan family, I mean, I know a little bit about them because Tony, who's the GM, is the owner of AEW, the wrestling company that I love. And, they're in a good spot right now. They balance a lot between a wrestling company, Liverpool, and then, not Liverpool, I forget what soccer team they own, but then also the Jaguars. And the Jaguars, they're in a spot, man, where they got really lucky thanks to the Jets, and Trevor Lawrence is right there on their table. If you're going to lure Urban Meyer, I believe they've got a lot of money in free agency available. You got Trevor Lawrence right there on your doorstep that will be yours. I mean, that might be tempting for Urban, but at the same time, they're going to have to really dish out some money, and the Khan family has money. They've got pretty much unlimited money, so they could do that, but it's like, to what extent becomes ridiculous and not worth it?
Well, if Matt Rule got what he got, what can Urban Meyer ask for?
And would he be good? That's the thing, too, or would he be Steve Spurrier going to the Redskins?
Yeah. Is he going to be a 5 to 7 year? When I go to hire my next NFL coach, unless I'm really good and I just need somebody not to screw it up, okay, maybe a guy that's going to be there a couple of years. Jimmy Johnson was never going to be more than 5. Bill Parcells was never going to be very long.
Yeah.
I don't know if Urban Meyer's going to coach more than 2 or 3 more years, and I don't know if by the time he gets to his 3rd year, is he going to then retire because of health, or because he gets bored, or because he's not in it, because he doesn't, have that same fire? He's done a nice job as an analyst at Fox. He really has. And so we'll see what happens with that. Now, one more note. Stephen F. Austin, this is something that came out a few weeks ago. They're going to join the WAC with Abilene Christian, Lamar, Sam Houston State, SFA, and Tarleton State basketball coaches Billy Gillespie. They're going to have 7 members of the Western Athletic Conference, also Southern Utah, and Paul, who is Dixie State?
I don't know. Dixie State.
You ever heard of that? I've never heard of that school. And I feel like I've known, it's becoming harder and harder for me, more difficult for me to remember. There's new schools popping up everywhere now when it comes to high school football in Texas. There's new schools in these suburban schools that are blossoming left and right.
But how is Dixie State in Utah? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, that's why, because of Southern Utah, so there's a connection there.
There's a Dixie region apparently in Utah, so that's why.
Right. So there you go, and that's.
I would have said Mississippi.
It's not a bad basketball conference with Stephen F. Austin. That's not, again, they're going to get him. They'll get a berth. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm not sure what happens with that. Tarleton State with Billy Gillespie, because Tarleton State doesn't go to the NCAA tournament.
So
now they can if he was to turn them around and win there.
I'm just now learning about Dixie State. I would have assumed they were in Mississippi or Alabama.
Yeah.
They're actually in Utah because there's a Dixie region, and apparently they voted to in December remove the word Dixie. So right now, I guess they're just State University. And I'm sure they'll have to come up with something new there.
Dear Lord.
Yeah.
All right, when we come back, at 3:45 today, Mike Ducey today, right, Paul? At 3:45 from Fox 4 up in Dallas on the Cowboys. Also today, we have John Machota. He'll join us today at 5 o'clock as well. And then Dave Wilson, he's a national writer for ESPN. He's a Texas boy. He'll join us today as well. I think he's going to be on at 4:30. King McClure on Skype at 4 o'clock. Also, Jerry Prieto. This is a Cinderella story. Crosby High School. They're in the semifinals. And Jerry Prieto, the head coach, he's second year there. They've been stunning everybody, upsetting. They've beaten number 5, 4, and 3 in the state in the playoffs back to back so far in the last 3 weeks. This is SicEm365 Radio.
So hopefully you took advantage of the great deals over the past month at Richard Carr, and really the past several months. They've had deals on deals on deals. Right now they've got the tire match guarantee where they will meet or beat any competitor's price on tires guaranteed. And I'm somebody who's going to have to get some tires soon, so that's something I'll need to look into. And certainly getting a price match guarantee can make you feel a little bit better about that process. But that's just the tires. That doesn't include all of the pre-owned vehicles that they have available as well. Tons of vehicles available right now. You get a 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander Sport for less than $10,000. You can get a GMC Acadia 2011 model for just slightly over $10,000. They've got the 2016 Buick Encores for a little over $11,000. Those are some older models. They've got plenty of newer models that are rolling through as well. Great deals, thousands off a variety of different lines. You got the Cadillac, the luxury of the Cadillac. Right now, you can save thousands on the XT4, XT5, and XT6s. And of course, at Richard Carr, they will bring the Cadillac experience to you with test drives at your home or your office. But that test drive at your home or office also includes the other models. How about the Buicks? You've got the Buick Envisions. Right now, say $7,500 off those, $7,000 off the GMC Terrains. They've got the 2021 GMC Sierra Tex Edition Crew Cabs, unwrapped $8,000 off those models right now, and more and more and more savings at Richard Carr. And at Richard Carr, they love their healthcare workers, military, and first responders. That's why over the last few weeks, they've been offering GM supplier pricing on all cars in stock, and I do believe that's now extended to everyone. GM supplier pricing on most cars in stock. And, of course, Richard Carr just got done delivering a lot of cool toys for kids, needy kids in the area, as they had their Christmas giveaway, gave away a lot of bikes, and thanks to those people who dropped off gifts at their dealership as well. So they had the holiday sales event. They've still got lots of savings. Go right now and take advantage, or give them a call, and they will bring the test drive to you. Save big. Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac.
Let's face it, some people just like driving around in the new. Hi, Jay here from Pickup Outfitters to talk about those truck owners that know they have naked trucks but simply don't care. You'll hear them saying something like, I'm just driving around free and easy, nothing constricting me. Gross. But there is something that can entice almost any naked truck owner. Leather. I mean, they kind of go together, right? And Pickup Outfitters is an authorized dealer and professional installer of cat skin leather seats. So I'm asking you to do your part and help us end truck nudity. The next time you're near your naked truck owner friend, you can say something like, you know what would really be sexy on your truck? Leather. And they'll get that sly smile, and you know you've hit them in their weak spot. Pickup Outfitters installs factory matching leather kits or custom kits in just about any color combination for your truck or even car. It's the sexy thing to do. You can be part of the problem, or you can create a commotion with cat skin leather seats at Pickup Outfitters. 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Learning to navigate life in the COVID-19 world has been a struggle, and where and how to get tested has been one of the biggest challenges. Impact Health Labs has your answer. If you need mass testing for your office, church, dormitory, or school, Impact Health Labs is who to call. They will come to you, conduct the testing at your location, and have the test back within 24 hours. Most major insurance accepted, meaning your out-of-pocket cost is low. So no more waiting by the phone for days to find out the results. Impact Health Labs was founded by 3 Army licensed and credentialed medical professionals professionals. They believe in accuracy, efficiency, and doing the job right. Call 254-744-6233 to set up your group screening today. Impact Health Labs, on-site, prompt, and accurate, taking COVID-19 head-on. Again, that number is 254-744-6233 or online at impacthealthlabs.com.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
It's time to be brutally honest with yourself. Look in the mirror or weigh yourself. Do you weigh as much, more, or less than you did before the holidays or a year ago? Why not start the year in better shape than how you ended it and create momentum for 2021 and help strip the negative vibes, tension, pressure, and extra pounds from the crazy of 2020? It's time right now to join Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. It's so much more than a gym, including world-class tennis courts, lessons available with pros, fitness merchandise, tanning, massage, personal training to get you over the hump. I promise you'll look better and feel better than ever before. Just need to walk through the front door. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with personal trainers Christy London and Randall Court. 40-plus group exercise classes, including twice-a-week boot camp, spacious, clean workout room, free weights, Cybex cardio equipment, and no intimidation, a tremendous camaraderie and family atmosphere. So make this your best and healthiest year ever. It's time to react today, not tomorrow. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio.
This segment on Baylor Athletics on SicEm365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, located at the Imperial Drive exit off Loop 340 in Waco. Proud supporters of all Baylor Athletics.
Baylor assistant head basketball coach Jerome Ting with us on SicEm365 Radio. Oklahoma and Baylor tonight, 8 o'clock at the Farrell Center. Man, Jerome, thank you for being a part of the show. Happy New Year. Oklahoma can fill it up from outside, huh?
Yes, they can, man. They're such a balanced team. They've got two seniors in Reeves and Manick who have experience winning. They have a Hall of Fame coach on the sideline. Lon Kruger kept me up 2 nights in a row just trying to figure out what he's doing and how he does it. And because he'll always have something different that you've never seen before from him that's going to put you in a bind. And he's just such a terrific human being. And Carlin Hartman and the rest of the guys on that staff do such a great job with their team. And so it's going to be an interesting night in the Farrell Center. We just need 2,500 people in there. That every seat that can be filled needs to be filled because we need that sixth man giving us that advantage.
Do you sense that Oklahoma is a team, and of course you mentioned the Hall of Fame coach and Lon Kruger, do you sense that perhaps they have surprised a few people early on with their wins? And heck, they had Texas Tech in trouble before dropping that game by just a deuce.
Well, they may have surprised people who don't know Oklahoma, but for those of us in the league, we understood that, last year's team, he had a ton of new guys, and this year's team, he's got pretty much everybody back. And you give a coach and a staff like that the same group of guys with a year of experience and an opportunity to build on the culture and to build buy-in, and you can see the way they play. They play for each other. They're a really connected team on the defensive end, and offensively, guys are understanding their roles. And so that's a very, very tough combination. So they didn't surprise anyone in the Big 12.
Is there ever a game where you win in the Big 12 where you shouldn't cherish it?
No, ever. Any win in the Big 12, any win at all. Let me tell you, if you are not ready to play in the Big 12, you're going to get beat by 30 points, okay? You can be ready to play and still lose. Okay, and there are some teams in our league you can play as well as you could possibly play and still not have a chance to win that game. And so it's just every night is a grind. Every night there's a different aspect that coach is going to bring to the game. And I mean, if you watch that Oklahoma State West Virginia game the other night, Oklahoma State's up 19, but you always got to remember there's a Hall of Famer on that other end, on that other bench, and he's got something in his bag that he's gonna throw at you. So, it doesn't matter if we're up 10 or we're down 10. The coaches in this league are gonna have something to give to their team to allow them to have a spurt to give them a chance to get back in the game. And it's the joy of the 12, but it's also the stress of the 12.
Yeah, and there's conferences. Every conference has the grind. But what does it say about the players, yours, Oklahoma's, West Virginia's, any of the teams a part of the Big 12, that how mentally tough they must be and physically good they must be to go through what I call a sledgehammer of a schedule?
Man, it speaks to the character of the young men in our league and the culture in the programs in our league. And those cultures are headed up and driven by, you're talking guys, I think 6 of the coaches in our league have gone to a Final Four. When we're talking dudes who have accomplished, they've forgotten more basketball than most of us know. And so, they are driving incredible programs, pouring into these young men, and you see it out there, man. You see it. I admire so many of the guys that play in our league. Like, you look at them and say, man, I could coach that guy. Now, I wouldn't trade anybody on our team, but when you can look on other teams and say, man, I could coach that, it's like I said, it's the stress of the 12, but it's also the joy of being in this great league.
Did you guys recruit Umoja Gibson at University High? I know he played for Grant McCaslin. Now he's at Oklahoma. Had the huge game against West Virginia in that win. Did you guys, was he on your radar?
He was on our radar coming out of high school, and we were just, really loaded at the guard spot at that time, and had, I think that's when Davion and Maceo was sitting out that year. And so, when he went to Grant, obviously when he left Grant, we wouldn't recruit him, Grant's family. And we love Umoja, but that was just one of those things you wouldn't mess with a family member's player.
Yeah. Now, you guys have this team ranked number 2. It depends on who you look at. You've been one. You guys have been there before. The expectations are enormous. And so how have your players, you think, so far handled that? And are they still as unselfish as they seem to be throughout all of last year?
Well, our expectation as a team and as a family here is to go 1-0 every day. And we go 1-0 for breakfast, then we try to go 1-0 for lunch, and we can try to go 1-0 in practice. Just every aspect of the day, we try to go 1-0. And if we do that, then the results are going to come. Our guys, they understand that winning allows everyone to receive the accolades. I don't know if you saw the young man that won the Heisman last night.
Yeah, absolutely.
When he talked about how, with winning comes the rewards of it, but it's because of his teammates and the winning, and it showed having 2 guys on Alabama up for the Heisman last night. And I feel that way about our team, that those guys understand that it's winning, and that's why one night, Jared Butler would have 13 assists, and then the next night, Davion Mitchell would have 12 assists. And on any given night, they're each willing to do the things that it takes to help the team win, and then have joy in watching everyone else have success. And when you have a team, and Coach Drew's built a culture here of joy, Jesus first, others second, yourself last. And that's just the thing. Our guys from top to bottom have bought into it, and they spread it. And so it's fun to be around.
How much maturity has Matthew Myers shown, the kind of player that he is becoming?
Man, I just absolutely love Matthew Meyer. I went and gave him a big hug yesterday before practice. And I said, Matthew, I'm so proud of you. And he didn't, I said, Matthew, it's not the big things, it's the little things. The other day in practice, something happened and he didn't get his free throws in, and Coach Brooks brought him back in and to make him shoot his free throws. And that night, he sent Coach Brooks a text and said, Coach, thank you for holding me accountable to make my free throws. And, I mean, when you've got guys who, you see that maturity, and it's just, like the inside of you, this thing wells up where I'm getting older now, so I start crying for no reason. But, those are the type of things that brings tears to your eyes, tears of joy of seeing young boys who come into your program and they grow into young men and do the little things that show the maturity that you're hoping to take place. And it's happening, man. It's happening for them.
Jerome Tang, assistant head basketball coach at Baylor. One more question. We had Jonathan Chalmachachua on the show about a week or so ago. Is he ahead of the curve of where you thought he would to pick up the system and be a part of what you're doing?
I wouldn't say that he's ahead of the curve. I think he's right on where we feel like it's going. There's a long way. It's like just he's just the tip of it, man. I'm just telling you, there's so much more. And the nature of this season that we've only played a few games, like normally we'd have already had 13 games under our belt, and we don't have that. So there is actually some playing time where he's a little bit of experience-wise behind it, but I think I've said from the very beginning, end of January, middle of February, everybody, you're gonna see a big turn. Here with him, both he and Flo, and but I just tell you what, he's a joy to work with. He's a joy to be around. You're talking every day. This young fella brings an incredible energy and passion and a smile on his face, and he makes coming to work. And I could say that of almost every dude on the team. It just makes coming to work so much fun that it's not work. I think I heard Homer Drew say the other day, I think it's Fran Fischella. He said, if you don't want to work, have a job for the rest of your life, become a coach.
Yeah.
Because it's not, man. This is so much fun with these guys.
Jerome, thanks for your time. We'll see you tonight at the Farrell Center.
Hey, Smoak, real quick. I just want to let everybody know that I want to thank Dave Aranda. We talked about me being the offensive coordinator, but I felt like my need over here was a little bit more important with the men's basketball team. But I'm super fired up about Coach Grimes and the rest of the guys that are coming on staff. I'm a huge football fan. I've watched a ton of BYU games this year, and so I'm super excited about Coach Grimes and the staff that's coming on board and what's going on with the football program, and just so fired up, and thank you for all your coverage, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
So you turned it down, and that then opened the door for Jeff Grimes. That's That's my story. I'm sticking to it. You know what I'm going to say to you, though, and you would love this because of how tight your staff and program are. We have had R.C. Slocum, Ken Hatfield, Phil Bennett, Bob Stoll, who's a longtime coach in AD and foot. This guy, Mac Rose, worked for him at UTEP. We've had numerous people, former players who played for him. Every single one of them have said he's as genuine a person as you could ever meet, but he is a ball coach. And isn't that exactly what you would always want?
Yeah, I'm excited. I've never met him. I've just watched it, okay? And right. I'm super excited. I listened to Coach Bennett's interview. Coach, by the way, your interviews with Coach Bennett are legendary, man. I just absolutely love listening to Coach Bennett talk football. And when he talked about vertical spacing, being able to attack it and defend it, oh, my goodness. Yeah. I was ready to go out and run a pass pattern. Well, I'm really good pre-snap. But
man, hey, I can't wait to see you guys tonight, man. Jerome, thank you, Coach. All appreciate it. All right?
Have a good.
Thank you. Baylor's Jerome Tang on SicEm365 Radio.
All right, Jerome Tang. He's always that staff is always full throttle, but I think he had some extra full throttle in him today. We appreciate his time. Baylor, Oklahoma tonight, 8 o'clock at the Farrell Center. We'll be there for that. And also Ashley Hodge and Chris Fuentes are going to do post-game after the game tonight. Baylor and Oklahoma. We're now joined by Fox 4's Mike Ducey, broadcaster, television anchor. He's been in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for a long, long time. Mike Ducey joins us on SicEm365 Radio. Mike, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. What has been, in your opinion, kind of the reaction of the Cowboys season coming to an end? Is it one of the more end with a thud type Monday and Tuesdays you've experienced?
Smokey, there have been a lot of them in my 27 years here. And in some ways, it's a lot like, the aftermath of any disappointing season. And because the Cowboys have underachieved so many times here over the past 2 decades plus. There's a new twist on it this year because you have a new head coach, and the expectations were so high for Mike McCarthy after all of the success he had in Green Bay. And we all know the injuries occurred. We all know he lost Dak Prescott pretty early in the season. But I think one of the big headlines has just been the kind of the curious decisions that McCarthy made in game situations right up to that last game, when he didn't challenge that call and when he didn't go for 2. And there's just a real sense of disappointment, I think, with McCarthy. Not to be unfair to him, it was an odd year. We all know for a first-year coach, especially the extra challenges that came about because of the pandemic. But, Ron Rivera managed to work around it to a certain extent. Matt Rule did. Obviously, Stefanski did in Cleveland to get them to the playoffs. So I think the McCarthy disappointment is probably the headline that makes this postseason disappointment a little bit unique.
Well, the decisions curiously happened in the offseason too, Mike, when, Mike Nolan is the defensive coordinator hire, which is, kind of a buddy hire, not kind of, but it's a big buddy hire for Mike McCarthy. And then none of the free agents on defense worked out at all. And I mean, Darryl Worley was bad for 3 teams, and Don Terry Poe, you could go on and all the different things that happened. Is there any way Mike Nolan is back next year?
If you had asked me 4 weeks ago, I would have said there's no way he's back. Now I think there is maybe a way that he does come back. Just listening to Jerry talk about it on his radio show yesterday, of course, he wouldn't answer that question. You wouldn't expect him to right now. But what leads me to believe that maybe there's a sliver of hope for Nolan is the fact that Jerry himself took blame for allowing, a new defensive scheme to be put in during a pandemic season where they just didn't have as much of an opportunity to install stuff in the way that they typically would. So if Jerry's taking that blame, it leads me to believe that maybe he's blaming Nolan a little bit less. That McCarthy's going to fight for Nolan to stick around. If I had to absolutely bet on it, I'd say they'd probably make a change there, but I don't think it's a 100% deal that he's not back.
Mike, do you have any legitimate concerns over Ezekiel Elliott's production, or do you chalk it up to just the weirdness of the season, the offensive line being so in flux? How do you kind of view Zeke this season?
It's a little bit of everything. I think obviously a guy who runs the way that he does and has done so not only as a pro but in college and before that, it's bound to take a toll. So is the burst there that was early in his career? No, obviously. In some ways, and I tweeted this, and a few people kind of gave me a hard time about it. In some ways, I admired Zeke's season, this season, maybe more than any other, just because of the way he conducted himself. I think he was a better leader. I do think he continued to run hard. I just think that he was bothered by nagging injuries that we probably didn't know about all the way through. And obviously, the fact that offensive line just was a shadow of its former self hurt him too. Will he ever be the running back that he was? I'd be shocked if that were the case. But I still think he can be a really productive back in this league.
Do you think John Elway demoting himself and separating himself from basically the decision-making of personnel, did that even I know the answer, but I have to ask you, did that even register in Jerry Jones's mind?
I would be stunned. I would be stunned if it did. No, I can't imagine. And Smokey, we've covered enough training camps and done enough Jerry Jones interviews to know that if there's one thing that's always going to be the case, that is if he's healthy enough and able to do the job, he's going to be the general manager of this team. Now, is he the GM in the way that he used to be the GM? I don't think he is. I think Steven and Will McClay make, I don't know what the percentage would be, but a high percentage of the actual, day-to-day decisions. But Jerry still has veto power and still has the ability to make, ultimate decisions when it comes to personnel. And depending on how you see things, that's still dangerous. But yeah, I think I'd be stunned if he gave a second thought to the Elway thing.
What do you think or when do you think the Dak deal can get done?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was interested to hear Jerry yesterday talk about how he admits that Dak has, a ton of leverage, and that Dak has shown, I think the way he put it, everything you need to show to prove that you're a franchise quarterback. And he's saying all the right things. So the length of the deal will be the sticking point. Dak's going to want to be able to test free agency again quicker, and the Cowboys are going to want to lock him up longer term for salary cap reasons. But I think this offseason, just given the way Dak's last season ended, he'll have more incentive to get something done and have that kind of security. And given the way the year went without him, the Cowboys are going to have a lot of incentive to get something done too. So I would speculate sooner than later.
Mike, given any thought to the Cowboys in their draft position, I know we've got a long build up to that, but are they pretty much at the point where it's best player available, or do you think there's actually going to be, a certain area that they target?
Yeah, it's funny. They select 10th, and you could have criticized them last year for taking a wide receiver when they really didn't need one. But this kid obviously is going to be a really special player in CeeDee Lamb. So, by that token, I suppose you could argue take the best player available. But I'd be stunned if they didn't go defense with that first pick. And probably, I'm going to say probably secondary again. I think Diggs is a pretty good player. I think he's going to be good for them back there for a long time. But they need so much help, on defense. When you look past, I think DeMarcus Law had Lawrence had kind of an underrated season. I think he had a decent season. Alden Smith obviously was pretty good in his first year. Diggs, I think, is going to be a good player. Randy Gregory showed a few things, but can you really rely on him to stay in the field? But you get past that, and it's hard to find many bright spots defensively. So I think they got to go D with that first pick.
Mike, the Cowboys seem to have a culture problem as well. And I know sometimes that's lazy to say that, but I think Jalen Smith is an example of kind of almost too much glitz and glamour. It's an incredible story. He was a fantastic story, and at the end of his third year was a tremendous football player. But it seems like there's more of that hype than there is actually things getting done. Is he the epitome right now of them?
That's not a bad way to put it. And he's criticized a lot, for obvious reasons, because he's a guy who does more running around than actual playing, and his tackle numbers are pretty good. You can debate over why that is. And he seems like a really good guy, a really quality character guy, and that hasn't always been the case with the people that this team has acquired. I think one thing that got a lot of play yesterday, and I think deserved to from Jerry's radio interview, was the fact that he went out of his way to brag about the fact that the Cowboys set a world record for attendance during a pandemic. And the fact that he's still, even after a season like this, putting the brand up there right along with winning games. And he says, and I'll believe him, I'll give him the benefit of this doubt, that winning games is still the most important thing to him. But he takes so much pride in the way he's able to promote that team. And to your question, I'm sure that trickles down. And some players, if they have certain types of personalities, glom onto that, cling to that, and think, well, if we're not winning games and we're struggling, at least we're still America's team, in quotes. We're still the Dallas Cowboys. And that does represent somewhat of a culture problem. I'd agree with you on that.
Mike, thank you very much, man. Always appreciate how you do your business and handle it. Great stuff. Appreciate you.
Great catching up with you guys. Take care.
Mike Ducey, Fox 4 in Dallas, with us on SicEm365 Radio, is inside on the Cowboys. And of course, they're off season. What's the first thing? What's the first big? You put up your 5 things. Mm-hmm. What is the first thing that's going to happen? Is it Nolan? Is it Dak? They don't have to do that right now. What's the first? Is there going to be a coach fired before anything else happens?
I would think it's Nolan. I think that you have to get that done, because then that allows you to proceed with who's going to be your defensive coordinator next year? How are you going to approach that in the draft? Because you need to get people in the draft who match the scheme he's going to run, which is the problem with Mike Nolan is he was installing a scheme that they didn't have the proper guys to run.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be great if Dak was the story, but I doubt that at this point. Hold out hope that he would be, but yeah, probably Mike Nolan. I mean, you got to have your defense in order if you're going to go pick some defensive players, and they're clearly going to go pick some defensive players. So, yeah, you'd like to have the guy who'll be coaching them in place. Now, granted, that's 4 months away, so it's not like they're in a rush to get there.
All right.
So the season just ended. Take your time.
Might be somebody that's in the playoffs that you want to look at, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but Jerry doesn't always operate that way. When it comes to coordinators and assistant coaches, it's not always what you would think. Like, I'll appreciate Dave Aranda at the end of the year, whether you thought what he was doing with Fedora and Munoz or whoever else was right or wrong. He made a decision, he made it emphatically, and within a week he had everybody in place. And that's kind of the way it should work. Mm-hmm. With Jerry, you could have a linebackers coach hired and then the defensive coordinator.
Well, and one of the things you got to think about was they let Mike McCarthy hire the defensive staff this year, and it was the worst in team history. Well, they didn't let him hire the offensive coordinator. Well, maybe now they're going to tell him, okay, Mike, here's your defensive coordinator. It's Gus Bradley, or it's Dan Quinn, or it's whoever, you know.
Yeah. All right, coming up next, King McClure will be via Skype today. He's been in studio with us. He's been on the phone with us. He'll be through Skype today as we see his pretty face and discuss Baylor and Oklahoma and a little bit of college basketball as well. Also coming up a little bit later on, John Machota, a little bit more on the Cowboys in between. And then Coach Prieto from Crosby High School. I've been covering high school football in Texas since 1981. This Crosby run that they're on is it's a Cinderella run, and we'll talk with him a little bit about what they're doing as well. This is Sic'em365 Radio. If you want to become, and you don't think you are the high-performance man that you want to be strong and courageous, you want to feel good in every way possible. If you are getting older, if you're in your upper 30s or maybe 40s, or when you get into the 40s and then 50s, and then whatever else age you might be, Father Time is going to win in the end, but also Father Time will create some problems within your body. And one of them might be your testosterone level starts to drop. It might be subtle, and the next thing you know, wow, these things, what's going on here? You don't sleep as well. You don't have the same energy. You're lethargic. It could be something that affects whatever happens within the bedroom. It could be all of the above. And what used to be like verboten, you don't talk about stuff like that. Now, you can't watch television anytime, anywhere, without some sort of erectile dysfunction type commercial or some way to fix it. You could also have it done through Dr. Kent Petty. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. What he can do is get you blood work. Tell him Smokey sent you. He'll look at your blood work and give you a discounted rate. Look at the blood work. He'll also check your PSA, cholesterol, and other particular levels, sugar levels, what you need. But your testosterone levels, 1 out of every 3 men have testosterone levels drop as they start to age. And maybe you're one of those 3 men. And if you are, or you think you might be, get your blood work, let him look at your levels, and if your testosterone levels are dropping or too low, he can put you in a program to raise them up so you can be the high-performance man that you want to be at pettycliniclowt.com.
With your Ram truck from Allen Samuels, you may not have to plow through snow and mud or pull heavy loads, but you could. During the Big Finish year-end event, you get a Ram deal like no other. Employee pricing for all, 0% for 84 and no payments for 90 days. Ram 1500 Lone Star for Christmas. No other truck comes close. And ask about Big Finish pricing on Ram Heavy Duty and Ram ProMaster for your business. Happy holidays from Allen Samuels.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine has their easy-to-access drive-thru open and convenient and clean in-store location on the corner of Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. Riverbend Liquor has the best and most extensive variety of craft beer selections in Waco, and Balcones whiskey, including single malt, pot still, baby blue, rye, brimstone, and the all-new lineage in stock. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, family-owned and operated, and a hidden gem in Waco on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street. And find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
It's a new year. Time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Hi, this is David Smoak, including what you'll need to watch the NFL playoffs and Super Bowl. Ribs, sausage, links, brisket, chicken wings, bags of various snacks, and customized appetizer trays. Don't forget to order something now for the perfect home-cooked Valentine's Day dinner, which is closer than you think, including combo packs with ribeyes, fillets, and lobster tails. Live crawfish season is just around the corner. Absolutely the right time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Waco Custom Marketplace, your family meat market, butcher shop and bakery with everything baked fresh with old-fashioned farmers market atmosphere. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio.
Three left side, good. King McClure, there's his second made three of the afternoon.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We will hear from King McClure momentarily. Former Baylor guard, now a part of ESPN. He's kind of like, he's like the Swiss Army knife. If he appears on phone, he can be on Skype, he can be in studio.
Has this whole pandemic not shown us how much stuff we were doing that was unnecessary?
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, like, I was thinking about that the other night. I had to record the podcast. I was coming back from my trip and got set up. It didn't have very good internet, so it took a while. But did finally get it connected. I'm like, you know, we used to go have to meet at the Container over near the stadium to do that show, and now we're just via Skype, and that's how everybody does everything. And I know on Up Tempo, which if you haven't tuned into that, definitely check that out during the middays. I believe the only midday sports show in Central Texas that's live and local. And, yeah, they were, I think it was JD and Drake. I couldn't think of Drake's name for a second, but he was doing a Skype interview, wasn't he? Mm-hmm. Armstrong? And, like, just having that and having somebody's face on. And we've done that before here as well. But it's cool. It's cool how much has changed and how much easier things are. And you realize that now with how we've had to operate.
Well, you know what I think is going to be great. And now we'll get to go to media availabilities again, and that'll be nice. But I think there's some times where you don't need to go, where it's just like, you know, three guys sitting at a table where we could all just do a Skype. But if there's going to be opportunity to get like video and stuff like that, let's go, or more of that. But if it's going to be three guys at a table, then just get on Zoom and let's do three guys at a table and wrap it up.
Not like Big 12 media days where there's like 50 people surrounding the Texas head coach trying to scream answers or scream questions. Yeah.
Chris Fuentes and Ashley Hodge will have post-game show following Oklahoma and Baylor at the Farrell Center tonight. That's an 8 o'clock tip. King McClure, ESPN, former Baylor guard, joins us on SicEm365 Radio. All right, King, Oklahoma is everyone in the Big 12. There's no easy win. There's no win you shouldn't, cherish. But how dangerous, in your opinion, is Oklahoma's offense? And I know Baylor can put it up as well and play defense, but how dangerous is this OU offense?
I like the OU offense a lot. I think that they're very talented. I like the kid from Waco, Umoja Gibson. I think that he is a good player and will continue to get better once he just understands how Lon Kruger likes to run his offense. I like Austin Reeves a whole lot. I think this team is pretty good.
Lon Kruger's offense, you mentioned that, and Scott Drew mentioned that they'll run almost 5 guards at times. What's the challenge for Baylor when they do run that out and try to score in bunches?
I think the challenge is ultimately rebounding. I think that when you have 4 guards, 5 guards, can you rebound with other teams? Because other teams aren't playing 4 or 5 out. So I think that, we have the luxury of having Mark Vital, and when he's at the 5, he can rebound better than most at that position, especially being undersized. But when you have Matt Meyer at the 4 and Matt Meyer at the 5, sometimes maybe, probably not at the 5, but at the 4, I think it just comes down to, can we rebound? Can we compete on the boards and on the glass with these guys?
King, I know it's been a few days and the focus is now on Oklahoma tonight, but what were your takeaways from what you saw a few days ago with Baylor beating Iowa State?
I think it just shows that the Big 12 is always competitive. I think that you really can't take anybody for granted. Iowa State, they don't have the best record overall. They don't have the best record in the conference. But you go out there, they give you a game. It's hard to win in the Big 12, no matter who you're playing.
King, the way that Baylor played, and it's now they've set this standard, how difficult is it for them to not try to worry about a beauty pageant and just playing and winning, picking off one win after another and not worrying about, because they're so dynamic and people expect so much from them, not to worry about, but just win the game?
I think that's huge. Coach Drew does a great job of getting his guys locked in and focused each game because, like you said, now when I was at Baylor, we were number 1 in the country one time, but majority of the time we were the people doing the hunting, doing the seeking. Now every game you're being hunted. You're the number 2 team in the country, and everybody's coming for you. So you have to stay mentally sharp. You can't really, try to get your own numbers. You have to do whatever you can do to win, because right now it's all about winning and winning a Big 12 championship, something that Baylor's never done.
Was Baylor cold shooting from 3 on Saturday, or was Iowa State defending them well?
So that's a great question. I think that some days you just don't have it. Some days you just can't make shots. So I think more so Baylor just missed shots, because when you watch Baylor play, they shoot a lot of threes, is what they do. So they just had an off night or a rough night. You have those sometimes in basketball.
King, what do you think about what Shaka Smart and Texas have cooking right now?
I like what Shaka Smart did. I think Shaka Smart ultimately saved his career at Texas, saved his job, because he was on the hot seat most definitely. But, however, he recruits well. He recruits well every single year. Also, Matt Coleman, Courtney Ramey, they're older, they're mature. That's what you expect out of a group of juniors and seniors. So they're able to finally step into that role and fulfill what everybody, not just in Texas, but everybody around the country thought they could be.
King, Paul brought up the three-point shooting. Sometimes if that's what you do, you live by the 3, you die by the 3. But does that, in a way, almost not count with Baylor because there are so many waves of players who can shoot the 3 well?
Yeah, ultimately, that's the golden rule. You live by the 3, you die by the 3. But the way basketball is evolving, a 3-point shot is what wins you basketball games, was what wins you games ultimately. You shoot 33s in a game and you only make 10. That's still 30 points, even though you're shooting 30%. The 3 ball is what makes basketball now, thanks to a lot of NBA players, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. The 3 ball is everything. So I think that's the way the teams are starting to play, and that's what gets you wins in college basketball, regardless if you're hitting or not. But Baylor has a great defense to fall back on if they're not making shots.
Will Kansas right the ship? Last night was a good start in beating TCU by almost 30. But do you think they'll right the ship in the long term?
I don't think so this year. I think this year it's evenly spread. When you look at the top 3 teams in Baylor, Kansas, Texas, I think it's even. I mean, we saw what happened with Texas and Kansas. You saw Texas go into Allen and give them a beat down. I mean, it's partially due to COVID, because when you walk into Allen, there's not 17,000 people yelling at you. It's literally empty. So that plays a role into it, but I think Kansas is not riding the ship this year. Yes, they beat TCU pretty bad, but I don't think that they're the alpha dogs this year.
King, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. I asked this question of Jerome Tang, and you've been through the sledgehammer of the Big 12. What does it say about the players, and I know coaches as well, but as a player, what was it like knowing that basically every time you took the court, you knew it was going to be a knockdown, drag-out, down-to-the-wire type game when occasionally somebody would win big or maybe not play well and lose badly? What was that like as a grind mentally and physically?
Mentally, it's what you sign up for. Physically, same thing. I mean, really what it says about you is that you have to do extra on the back end. You have to do extra before that to prepare, before the game, after the game. You got to take care of your body. You have to sleep well, sleep right. You have to do all the little things, not let distractions get the best of you, because like you said, it's a grind. Every game, doesn't matter who you play, you have to be ready to fight, be ready to win, because if you don't, you'll get popped. So I think it just says, for me personally, it's what you do off the court. That's the biggest thing. How your off the court life affects your on the court life is huge, especially in the Big 12 play.
King, do you have what's the next game for you?
My next game is Saturday. I will be going to Iowa State, doing Iowa State and Texas Tech.
Thank you, man. Good luck. Appreciate it. You look good.
Thank you so much.
That's King McClure with us on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock. He's now been on Skype. He's been on phone and, of course, in studio as well. Can't wait to see him. Man, what a story he is. And, of course, his career as it blossoms. It was good to have us. Great to have us, King McClure, on Wednesdays.
How many times do you think King had wished that there wouldn't be people in the in Hilton Coliseum when he was back playing?
Hey, they owned it anyways.
Yeah,
they still own it.
But,
how many times in a row have they now won?
But he was part of the turnaround. But like right at the beginning of his career, Baylor could not. I mean, like Baylor would go to Hilton and they would leave unhappy.
Yeah, it was like Stillwater in football.
Yeah,
that's been a good 4 years though.
Yeah.
I mean, they have completely flipped that on its head. I mean, they just won there the other night. It was like nobody even. I don't even know if anybody mentioned that they went and won at Hilton, because it's just become commonplace now. But yeah, King has got quite the career going, and I was talking about how many things we've learned that we can do differently. I mean, granted, we could just have him on the phone, but it is nice having him on Skype and having him available that way as well. He's got a nice little office set up, and obviously some great thoughts as well. So, love that segment.
Yeah, he's great to have that. Also earlier today with Jerome Tang, and we also today heard from Scott Drew. Now, earlier today, the national championship game on Monday, Ohio State and Alabama, they've been having, the players have been available, coaches have been available. The tight end at Alabama, I love this quote, Miller Forrestal. And why Nick Saban is so good. He attacks all the little things with the same intensity and ferocity that he attacks the big things. He is better at the little things than anybody else. Thus, he's better at the big things. That seems like, if you ask me to write something simple that makes sense, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, he might be really good at recruiting. He might be really good about game management. He might be really, not that he's flawless, no one's perfect, but he attacks the little things with the same intensity and ferocity that he attacks the big things.
Well, and he also has a roster full of five-star players, and that helps tremendously as well. But you got to corral those guys, and when you deal with big players who have big attention when they're getting recruited, I mean, that could be problematic really easily. And he's done a masterful job of basically turning 5 stars into all 2 stars. And the way that they act, the way that they approach things, they all work to the same level. There's no real big egos. I mean, think about all the star players they've had, and there's never been like an ego issue that's arisen. And it's pretty remarkable because of the kind of the iron fist that he rules with. But, I mean, players love playing for him. Obviously, they love playing for him in part because they win, but also just the way he handles things. I mean, he's the GOAT. He's arguably the greatest of all time. And, the little things matter. Yeah,
he's doing this with 85 scholarship limits, so that that the coaches before him that have the similar numbers, I mean, nobody has the same numbers, but similar numbers to Nick Saban, didn't have to deal with. They had different rules, as far as it came to scholarships. The other thing is, I think, to your point, though, about the 5 stars, though, is all the 5 stars, acting like 2 stars. It's because if you don't get in line, guess what? There's a dude right behind you who's absolutely the same kind of athlete you are. So it's not like sometimes a 5-star guy will come in and he's the 5-star and all the rest of the guys are clearly below him. So he can do whatever he wants because at the end of the day, he can do things that the other guys can't. Well, at Alabama, that's not the case. Like Nick Saban has no qualms about, all right, well, guess what? You're out and this guy's in.
They lost Waddle and didn't blink.
And the next guy won the Heisman.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. They lost their starting center, who's one of the more, most loved guys on that roster. And we saw the reaction when he went down. You see that with anybody. And they played in a semifinal game without the center.
Yeah, but you're right, though. Like, their center goes down, and there's a 5-star center that's waiting. Baylor loses a center, and they have to move a guy from guard and then shuffle the guard. It's just not the same game that they're playing in most cases. And really, Alabama, Ohio State, maybe, or I would say not maybe, but Clemson certainly, and then maybe 1 or 2 others could say that as well. But, yeah, Alabama is loaded for bear. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm glad they're not postponing it as of last word. That's going to go on. It's scheduled next Monday night. So looking forward to seeing it because I think Ohio State will be really well coached. They always are.
Mm-hmm.
Bennett brought up how and this is something I want to ask Bennett next week, so please remind me. I've given myself a note, but that doesn't always do the trick because I just misplace things. But I want to ask Bennett, if you go back to that first year of the playoff, how he thinks they would have done against the teams that actually made the playoff. Like, how do you think that 2015, was it 14 or 15? 14, okay. Yeah. How the 2014 Baylor team would have fared against Alabama that year, Ohio State, those teams. I'd be interested to hear Phil Bennett's thoughts on that, but because he brought up a great point about Clemson has never seemingly handled tempo all that well, and Ohio State tempoed them to death, and made it look easy.
Well, yeah, what would, like, Oregon played in the title game against Ohio State that year. Yeah. How would they have handled Oregon?
Yeah.
How would they,
It was Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State, and Alabama.
Yeah. And so I believe that's the last time Ohio State and Alabama played, right?
So, like, Bennett, how would you have handled Mariota?
Yeah.
How would you have handled Winston at Florida State? And how would you have handled Ohio State, who obviously had the great run with Cardale Jones there? And then Alabama, obviously loaded as ever. I guess that would have been McCarron, maybe, would have been the quarterback that year.
I don't
even remember. It's so long ago. But, I mean, still, it's Alabama. They were really good. They were the number 1 or whatever. So, yeah.
Greg McElroy or something like that.
Yeah, so I'm curious to hear what he thinks about that.
Yeah, and you think about, I think of those teams that year. Ohio State had the drama with their, they're on their 3rd quarterback. Mm-hmm. Mariota won the, was the Heisman Trophy winner that year, right? And then the Florida State team was the one that kept falling behind everybody and having to come back. That might have been a team they could have beaten because with their offense, falling behind against Baylor that year wasn't 7-0 or 17-0. It was 27-0.
Yeah, it was. Hey, Armstrong, can you go to @CJ the number 1 and then TWO2? It's Cardale Jones's Twitter account. Can you do that for a second? CJ the number 1 and then spell out TWO. And the one that said is from 23 hours ago. We talked about, did we ever bring up Saban's daughter, right? We did that, right?
She
apologized.
Or whatever.
No, we didn't really talk about it, I don't think.
She put up something about, if you're not confident to play, then say it. I call BS on the COVID cases involving Ohio State. They were just worried about their quarterback. They wanted to have more time. You didn't see us postpone the rest of the season to wait for Waddle. Bye. And then, of course, you knew what was going to happen. She had to come back and apologize. Take it down. I'm sorry, I'm not taking enough... I'm not taking COVID serious enough and whatever. Plus, Nick probably had a conversation with her. But then Cardale Jones said, this is great. I love sometimes when it's funny, smart aleck or whatever. You sure you want to face another backup quarterback from OSU? You know what happened last time, right?
Yeah.
And that was Cardale Jones on that great run in 2014, right? 2014. Is that long ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
They have Barrett, JT Barrett.
And they had the kid that went to the Texans that got hurt that ended
Braxton
up
Miller.
Yeah.
And then Cardale Jones. Yeah. So
they were really good and obviously that was a crazy year. Baylor, had their opportunity to get in and they were the first team on the door knocking, and that's why I'm interested to hear what Bennett says coming up on Monday about how he thinks they would have fared.
Remember C.J. Collins? He played at Bosqueville. When he had a little cup of coffee with the Green Bay Packers. We had him on the show when he was picked up by the Packers. He's now a coach, if you're listening to us on local high school football knowledge, at Mid-America Nazarene University in Kansas. He's been hired there to be a part of that staff with head coach Paul Hansen. This is SicEm365 Radio. Alan Samuels, a new year means time for a new truck or car that you've been wanting. And let me tell you about Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat in Waco. Customer First Award for Excellence winner, the most prestigious award in the car business, because customer service is not just some sort of a slogan or something they say. And I know for a fact, because I bought a car back in the early part of the summer. AJ was my salesman, and AJ has stayed in touch with me from start to finish, even telling me at times, when I've mentioned on this show that I've had a low tire, had to fill it up when it was real cold outside. Hey, bring it over here. We'll take care of it. Even when the hook on the top of one of the doors in the back where you might put a shirt or pants, slacks, whatever, popped off, he said, hey, let me help you take care of that. I've already bought the car. He's already got his commission. He continues to take care of me as a customer of Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Here's some of the specials they have. New 21 special offers. 2020 Dodge Charger SXT, total value is $5,670 or 0% for 72 months standalone. 2020 Dodge Journey, the most affordable third-row seating vehicle with total values up to $6,750 off. Also, tougher than nails, the Jeep Renegade Latitude, values of $6,750 off, in the 2020 Jeep Gladiators, models up to $4,000 in total values off. They have all sorts of opportunities for you to get something with great opportunity when it comes to discounts. Here's one 2021 Jeep Cherokee Latitude, the 2021 Plus with the Lux with up to $5,500 in total values. It's there. It's at Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. And don't forget now, the Ram truck back-to-back Motor Trend Truck of the Year at Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
At Baylor University, students can shine in their own way. Or should we say their own ways? Because there's no limit to the ways Baylor students make the world a brighter place. Whether they're leading a student organization or following a higher calling, getting advice from faculty, or taking part in world-class research, pursuing their dreams, or working toward their dream job, students find their place to shine at Baylor, where lights shine bright.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
This is SicEm365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The SicEm365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
All right, the national championship game Monday night, Alabama, Ohio State. They're starting to have their various media opportunities. The game Monday night, Ohio State and Alabama for the national championship. Last night, Smith wins the Heisman Trophy. Fourth wide receiver. Johnny Rodgers, Tim Brown, who we had on the show yesterday, Desmond Howard, and now Devontae Smith as well. Dave Wilson, national writer for ESPN. He's a Texan. He joins us on SicEm365 Radio. Dave, your thoughts about the Heisman? Did they get it right?
I think they got it right. I think this was the year that if you're going to shake it up a little bit. The game has changed enough to where receivers are the stars they are, and I think this was the right call this year.
Do you think this might be the start of not necessarily a trend, because that would be a lot, but maybe an opening of the door?
I think so. I mean, you saw, the way the game has evolved. Quarterbacks there was a run on quarterbacks for a long time as passing games took off, and I think now people realize that some of these guys are a lot of what makes the quarterbacks go.
Dave, what are your thoughts on Steve Sarkisian to Texas and obviously the departure of Tom Herman coinciding with that?
It's an interesting, I think it'll be interesting to see because so much of the Texas job is more than just the X's and O's. I talked to a former Texas assistant this week who said that, that most people that come there are great coaches, that's not the challenge of the job. The challenge is everything else. So, that was Herman had a very similar pedigree, frankly, than Sarkisian. He was a play caller for a national power at Ohio State, and then came there, and he had the 2 years at Houston. But there's just for some reason that's just a tough job. So Sark will definitely know how to move the offense. It's just how much of that job consumes the rest of his time.
Yeah, you wonder how many coaches have gone there. And obviously, Mac Brown was a perfect fit. Darryl Royal was the perfect of all fits. But how many coaches have gone there and been pretty good when they got there, and they just could never be who they wanted to be because of the influences on the outside?
It's fascinating to look at because, they do have everything they need. And, Mac Brown won 2 Big 12 titles, as great as Mac Brown was. And it just, Oklahoma's won 14. So, it's for some, people say Texas is Texas, but if you look over the history, it's been sporadic when they've had sustained success. So that there's a lot bigger factors at play there, obviously.
Well, they're good at marketing. That's part of it. Isn't that you can sell yourself as one thing when you're really something else in reality. It happens all the time. Do you think that Sarkisian's staff will that make a big swing in any of this to you? Who he gets?
I think it will. I mean, you're seeing that at Baylor right now. 1 year in, and there's wholesale staff changes, and I think Tom Herman had to shake up his staff. His first staff, it seemed like they didn't quite get it right, and so they're giving Sarkisian a lot of money for the staff part of the operation, and that was a key to taking the job, I think, and that's been the key for a lot of these big hires. With Jimbo Fisher at A&M, it was the same thing. These guys know now that it's not just about them. It's about what they can do with their staff. And so I think that's going to be a big key.
Dave, I don't know what side of this fence you sit on right here, but, there's obviously a lot of talk about the playoff, and around here, A&M getting left out. They obviously had a beef. We went through this with Baylor and TCU during the first round of the playoff, and the argument against expansion is always, well, there'd be blowouts. But I don't know. I've been watching the college football playoff these last few years, and there's still a lot of blowouts. So what is the harm, if any, in having, extra teams and maybe we see 2-3 more blowouts, but you do also give yourselves the chance that maybe a UCF does rise up and knock off a Notre Dame or something like that? Because right now we're just seeing Notre Dame get blitzed in the semifinals every time, it seems like.
I tend to agree with you. I mean, I sort of agree with all the factors that people are saying about how it's bad for the sport to basically eliminate an entire group of teams because they're not in a Power 5 conference from the jump, and that seems like what it definitely has done. And so I agree with you. I think there's definitely more room. I think it makes the bowl games more interesting, and I can't see that not coming down the road at some point with the way things have gone.
Did you you did not cover Baylor, but you know a little bit about what they're doing here with what Dave Aranda has done with their offensive staff, and Jeff Grimes comes in from Brigham Young. He's been at Auburn. He's been at LSU. He's been around the country. And then also Pugh comes in from Troy. Just your overall thoughts. What did it say to you that Aranda, after 1 year of which was a difficult year for many reasons, 2-7, pulls the trigger within a week of his offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach, and a week later has his staff in place?
I think that was a very bold decision, a bold move. I mean, I think it showed, that he's not complacent, and it's not he's not worried about any sort of image or message it sends, that he's willing to shake it up after a year. And that's a tough thing. Coaches have families, they have lives, they know, he's been an assistant, he knows what that's like. And so to become a head coach and have the nerve to, make big changes after 1 year, to me was a really important message that he sent. And to be able to go and get guys the caliber of Grimes and Pugh, especially, Grimes, had such a great year. And then Pugh, to have an offensive coordinator come in as your offensive line coach. I know he was also offensive line coach at Troy, and they put up big numbers, and he worked for a guy in Chip Lindsey, who was known as an offensive guy. So I thought it was a really impressive move, and it definitely sort of raised my antenna as that Dave Aranda wasn't afraid to shake it up if he needed to.
Dave, do you see a team like Baylor, a 2-7 team, a team that struggled, particularly ones with new head coaches this year in the year of COVID, that will bounce back strong, in your opinion, in 2021?
Right off the bat, I mean, I am interested in Baylor without Charlie Brewer, with a new staff. I've long been intrigued by Aranda. I mean, Aranda's been in situations. I sort of see it as his whole career has thrived in chaos, and he's such a quiet, introspective guy. From being on Mike Leach's staff and being at LSU, those are pretty wild situations, and he's always kind of kept his head down. I have this image in my head. I was at the national title game last year, and I walked immediately right before the game ended. I went down and I was outside the locker room, and you've seen the pictures of Burrow coming out with the cigar, and there's chaos everywhere, and the smoke's coming out of the locker room, and Dave Aranda came walking out with a briefcase and a three-piece suit on, and with his head down, and he looked completely different than everybody else. And I immediately thought, yeah, this guy's a little different than the rest of them.
Yeah, he's definitely unique. That's for sure. We got a big game coming up on Monday. Thankfully, it doesn't look like it's going to be moved, even though those were the rumors yesterday. Alabama, I mean, the juggernaut doesn't need to be talked about, too much about how great they are. But Ohio State, obviously very impressive with their destruction of Clemson. How do you see this game unfold, and how great of a game do you think this can be?
I think it's going to be really interesting. For all the talk about the playoff and all this stuff, it's still exciting when you get two powerhouse teams like this lined up against each other. And I think it's remarkable that in the history of the sport, Alabama and Ohio State have only played each other 4 times. And so it's great to be able to see this. I think Ohio State definitely quieted down a lot of people questioning whether or not they had played enough games to get there. The two great quarterbacks, that offense for Alabama, I just feel like it's going to be too much. Ohio State's 116th in the nation in passing yards per game allowed. Now, I know their efficiency is pretty good, but I just think, Devontae Smith and Najee Harris, it's just too much. So that's my gut, but it is amazing to see these two teams that are in the top 5 in wins, national titles, and first-round picks line up against each other.
May 25th of 2015, you wrote an article remembering the infamous ZZ Top show at Texas Memorial Stadium. Were you there?
I was not there. It was a little before my time there, but I had long. I was around, but I don't think I was old enough to go to the ZZ Top concert. But I'd heard that story for years about how Texas wouldn't allow any concerts at DKR anymore because of the ZZ Top show. So I went back and dug around, and I talked to a few people, and I found a photographer who was there we paid him for some of his photos, and talked to a bunch of people about the chaos on the scene. They cut up the turf and set off smoke bombs on the turf and all kinds of stuff. I never did get to talk to the ZZ Top guys, which was a bummer, but it's a fun story for sure. It's just one of those things to go back and look on.
It's probably 74. I should have known you weren't there. You're not old enough to have been there in 74.
David,
sorry, go ahead.
It might have been just as well that you didn't get to talk to them, because in 74, who's to say they remembered that one specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it mentioned. I think Billy Gibbons wrote about it in his book, and they kind of brag about the being the ones that shut down the concerts there. But I think the Eagles may have played there on their Hell Freezes Over final tour somewhere. Maybe it was the Cotton Bowl. There's a similar story of concerts at stadiums, and I don't remember at the time, but there was that definitely upset a lot of people in Austin.
And there's a picture of mass amount of bodies on the stadium field, and a plume of, what is that? It just looks like a forest fire in the middle of all of them.
Yeah. The photographer said that people were burning stuff on the field. It's hard to imagine that now with as serious as these athletic departments take themselves. Imagine having a ZZ Top and Joe Cocker and Santana concert in the stadium.
That's great. You were able to you've been you were still, what was it, the News Journal in Longview, Dave? Isn't that where you were at one point? Is that right? Or where were you in East Texas?
So I'm from Kilgore.
That's right.
Started at I did work at the News Journal. I worked at the News Herald in Kilgore. I've been all over. I think I told you this, Big 12, but I used to sit next to you on the press row sometime for the old Kilgore College basketball games when I was covering it.
Yeah.
So we go way back, even if you don't remember me back in those days. But
we do.
But yeah, so I bounced around. I've worked at 5 Texas newspapers: Kilgore, Longview, Dallas, Houston, Beaumont. And then been at ESPN for a little over 10 years now.
I remember we shared some stories at the Big 12 Media Days. It seemed like it's been 5 years ago. It wasn't quite that long ago, but
yeah, I think it was 2.
Yeah. So hey, congratulations on the opportunity with what you're doing at ESPN. It's great to go down a trip down memory lane, and also appreciate your knowledge on what's going on in college football right now.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dave Wilson of ESPN with us on SicEm365 Radio. Now one of the national writers for the national writer for ESPN, and Alabama and Ohio State coming up on Monday night. Hey, I got a couple of more notes before we break, and we'll come back with Jared Prieto, the head coach at Crosby High School. Some NFL notes. You know that trend, Paul, that I bring up every year going into a season? Mm-hmm. What is the trend about the NFL that every year?
That 4 teams don't make the playoffs that do and all that, so.
Yeah. Washington, did Pittsburgh make the playoffs last year?
No, because they lost Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, he was out.
At least 2 teams have won their divisions the season after missing the playoffs in 17 of the past 18 years. So that's different than what I've even told you. That's another little nugget. The 7 of the 14 teams were not in the playoffs last year. 7. Chicago, Cleveland, Indianapolis, the Rams, Pittsburgh, Tampa, and Washington. Mm-hmm. To me, it's bizarre. Since 1990, at least 4 teams every single year have qualified for the playoffs after the year before missing the playoffs. That's every year since 1990.
Yeah, well, I mean, it partially helps that Tom Brady is no longer with the Patriots because that was basically a playoff spot that was locked up for about 20 years.
That's true.
We'll see what happens with the Saints once Breeze retires at the end of the year because they were regularly in there. Ravens, there's kind of some of the same teams, but I think what the jockeying is really like those wild card teams and those types. And obviously, you look around, the NFC East is a crapshoot every single year, so that changes almost every year to 2 years. It's either one of the four. I mean, one of the four gets in pretty regularly now that Washington has. So, I mean, that is, I guess pretty consistent turnover. But, yeah, you got the Browns rising up, and they were never in the equation. And teams like the Patriots, as I mentioned, who are not part of the equation, and you basically booked them on Super Bowl Sunday for 10 years in a row. So,
yeah,
I like that there's turnover. I like that there's new teams. I like that there's teams like the Bills that matter again, and teams like the Dolphins who are on the come up as well. I think it's good for the sport.
Will Belichick lead a team back to the Super Bowl?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so anytime soon, and I can't imagine him coaching another 10 years. But
yeah,
maybe
the roster was always good around Tom Brady, but Tom Brady was the X factor. So can he get a quarterback that's good enough to do that? And part of the reason that Brady left was because Brady, and to show you how good he was, is that they were still winning the division and they had no playmakers last year. And now he's on a team that's chock full of them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Josh Allen, by the way, who had an amazing year. We'll have Joe DeLamalure on tomorrow. He's a Hall of Fame offensive lineman, played back in the 70s. Part of that line, Reggie McKenzie, who blocked when O.J. had the 2,000-yard year. Josh Allen finished with 4,544 yards, 37 touchdowns, ran for 8 touchdowns. He's the first player with at least 4,500 yards passing, 35 or more touchdowns, and 5 touchdowns rushing or more in a single season in NFL history. He is not everybody believed in Josh Allen.
No, a lot of people didn't. A lot of people, and I got, I guess hypnotized by, the quote unquote experts who are telling you and beating you over the head during the entire lead up to the draft that all he is a strong arm. And that's what you heard from from Todd McShay. And I don't want to maybe quote him exactly because I just know there were more detractors than there were supporters of Josh Allen. And hey, the supporters were right. I mean, he absolutely is a fantastic quarterback. Buffalo's got their franchise guy for the next 10 years. And he's incredibly good. He's part of a great young crop of rookie quarterbacks in the league right now. And it's great to see a city like Buffalo, a city like Cleveland, who have just been down in the dumps for forever now. And they're both having the time of their lives because their teams are in the playoffs. It's pretty cool.
And one other note, and then we break and we come back with Jerry Prieto of Crosby High School. You look at you have Aaron Rodgers, you've got Drew Brees, teams that are in the playoffs, these veterans. But when you look at the youth of the quarterback position, with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, who had a fantastic rookie year, Deshaun Watson, he was walking off the field with J.J. Watt and said, "Say, I'm sorry, we wasted one of your years." They wasted one of his years too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it all kickstarts back to the decision about DeAndre Hopkins and that trade that Bill O'Brien now might be at Alabama rather than trying to lead a team into the playoffs this week with Houston. When we come back, Jerry Prieto, one of the great Cinderella stories. He may not think that way. Crosby High School into the semifinals. He is next on SicEm365 Radio. Waco Custom Marketplace. Man, I tell you what, if you like steaks and you like them customized, you like them cut a specific way, you can contact them, tell them what you want, by email, phone call, or online, WacoCustomMarketplace.com, and then go pick up the steaks that you want. And I mean customized steaks that I get sometimes, bone-in ribeyes or bacon-wrapped fillets that are like this thick. The bone-in ribeyes this thick. Just as you want, and they'll get it done for you. Also, if you want seafood or poultry, pork, they have the butcher shop that's open all the time when it comes to your customized orders, or maybe you want to get a little bit of all of that. And then the bakery, every single morning, fresh baked kolaches. Every single day they have fresh baked kolaches and fresh baked bread, and also other sweets and treats that you would like for desserts, whether it's cookies or cookie cakes or even pies and much more. And then up and down the aisles in the front, 2 or 3 different aisles of what is an old-fashioned grocery store look. Things that you may need, from boxed dinners to canned goods to soft drinks and chips. And then, of course, seasonings, sauces, and much more, including spices. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, where David Bauer and his family, of course, ran Waco Custom Meats and Waco Custom Marketplace. He was put to rest today. And we told you about how much of an amazing Baylor fan he was, and we're still thinking about all those involved with the Bauer family, including those who knew him, and we were fortunate enough to know him. He loved this show. And Baylor University Athletics. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor alumni program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
If you or a loved one or friend has been arrested and you can't afford bail, trust Terry and Chase Chapman at Chapman's Bail Bonds, covering Waco and McLennan County for over 25 years. Chapman's can bail you out anywhere with experienced, knowledgeable local agents who are committed to serving you professionally, respectfully, and with the highest integrity. Chapman's understands your privacy is important. Your freedom can be secured fast when you use Chapman's Bail Bonds. Open 24 hours a day. Payment arrangements available. Call Chapman's Bail Bonds. When you need help, 254-754-1603. When you ring, we'll spring.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Trucks, man, they have the one for you. Crew cab, short or long bed, silver, black or blue. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, he has the truck for you. Carr has the trucks, man, he has the truck you need. If you want the best truck, you want a GMC. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physician of Baylor Athletics. Our doctors specialize in the diagnosis and treatment of any and all sports-related injuries. Celebrating over a decade of service in Central Texas, our doctors are equipped to handle a wide range of issues, whether it's your foot or ankle, orthopedic spine care, your hand or wrist, knee and shoulder pain, or if you're in need of our arthritis or total joint clinic. Come see us at the new Baylor Scott and White Ted and Sue Getterman Sports and Orthopedic Center. Trust the doctors at Baylor Trust, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. Our goal is to get you back in the game.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. This high school football segment is sponsored by Southwest Sports Medicine. We'll get you back in the game.
Man, it's interesting. I have enjoyed, although it's been a grind, but I've enjoyed the fact that there have been weeks of high school football when otherwise everything would have been done by, of course, the weekend before Christmas, but there are still games to be played, and that continues. In one of the games in 5A Division II, Liberty Hill and Crosby will meet Merrill Green Stadium in Bryan, 7:30 on Friday. We're joined by Jerry Prieto, the head coach at Crosby High School. Jerry, would you be offended if I called you a Cinderella story?
Oh, no, Jim. We take whatever. You can call us whatever you want. It doesn't matter.
Where did this come from? Where did this come from? I know it has to do with you and the coaching staff and the players and the commitment and all that, the offseason, but this is a run, and I've been covering football in Texas since 1981, and this is, and you always have a story or two like this. This seems to me, this is just a great story.
Yeah, we've been on a pretty good run here of late, but we thought last year heading into the off season that we had a chance to have a really special team, and we were having a really great team. And after the shutdown, and as the summer was going along and everything, we really leaned on those seniors because they're the ones that had to get a lot of the workouts together, as we couldn't have a lot of organized stuff going on. But no, these guys. They're just a family. They play for each other. They play the games. And it's just been a joy to coach these kids this year.
How strange or unorganized workouts with seniors worked out? I mean, because, again, you're talking about kids, too.
Yes, you are. You're talking about, 15, 16, 17. But, I think it's just a testament to the kids that we have and the character of the kids that we have. And, they came into this year with the chip on their shoulder, not just the playoffs, but just this year. And we had a couple early setbacks, but we lost our first game to George Ranch, who was a 6A playoff team, and we were winning that game in the fourth and just kind of lost control of it a little bit in the fourth quarter, and they beat us by a touchdown. And then we lost to Manville. And then we kind of started going on a run after that, and then lost our last regular season game, which caused us to share the district championship with Nederland. And from then on, our kids have been on fire, and they've kind of relished the underdog role that we've had the last 3 weeks, and I think we have again this week.
Coach, was there a certain, and I know you just said a few moments ago that you expected your team to be pretty good, but was there a point in the season, maybe a game early on, where you go, okay, yeah, we're going to be pretty good?
We got rolling a little bit, and then we played Barbers Hill, which is a big emotional game for us, a big rivalry game. And, last year they jumped out on us early, and we never could really make it much of a game. And we had them at home this year and went out and we didn't play really well offensively, but our defense, and they played lights out, and they created, I want to say we had like 6 or 7 turnovers in that game. And that was kind of where you started to really see it start to come together and really see us start to gel. And just the confidence of the kids really picked up after that game.
Enjoyed this yourself, but also from where you came from, Veterans Memorial, and they've made their own run into the semifinal Cedar Park this week.
Yes, sir. It's been special. I try to enjoy it as much as I can. I'm not somebody that enjoys things a whole lot because I'm, looking forward to the next opponent once we win or whatever it is. But it's been a pretty special run, and it is pretty special that it's happening at Veterans Memorial too with Cody Semper. He's one of my good friends. We've been friends for a long time, and I worked under him and learned a lot from him. And so to see, I know how hard that staff works and everything that they put in as well. So for both of us to be enjoying this is a pretty awesome experience this year.
Jerry Prieto, the head coach at Crosby, with us in his second year as head coach there on SicEm365 Radio.
Coach, Liberty Hill, what do you see on tape other than an undefeated team, a team that's got a lot of history, obviously, but breaking them down, what are you seeing and what stands out to you?
Yeah, and I got the opportunity to go watch them in person, and, man, they're even more impressive in person. Just you can tell just by the pregame warm-up and everything that they do, just the total buy-in that those kids have for the whole program. And I don't know if I've seen anybody execute the scheme of their offense better than these guys do. They get out there and, man, they execute it flawlessly, and their kids get after it and they play hard from snap to whistle every play. And so, like I said, it's not an offense that we see very much, so we've tried our best to simulate it in practice. But, there's no way to simulate the precision and the speed and everything that those guys do offensively. And then their defense flies around too. They've had a couple games where they've given up some points, but other than that, for the most part, their defense has really shut people down all year long.
717 yards rushing on 53 carries.
That was pretty insane. It was insane to watch it. I watched it in person.
Yeah.
And, it was pretty impressive.
And have you faced a slot T team?
We have not this year.
Okay.
We have not. It's been all pretty much spread teams this whole year. So this will be the first for us this year.
Do they also, and we do high school football games, are they a quick break the huddle, boom type snap slot T, or are they a little bit more methodical?
No, when they huddle, they send their playing, and when they break the huddle,
you better
if you
be
blink,
ready.
You're going to miss the snap. Yep, they're ready to go right now.
1960, Crosby played for a state championship game, lost to Albany. 1974 semifinals against Cedar Park. 2014, semifinal game against Cedar Park. So it's not as if you haven't been there, but and that 2014 wasn't too far away. How many of the former players that were a part of that 60s team, or even the one from 6 years ago, how many of them have kind of come back and been hanging around and excited about what you're doing?
Yeah, we've had, as we've been getting on this run, the support from the community, and not just those players. We've had some of those players reach out too, but just the total support of our community has been pretty awesome. Crosby obviously went through some hardships a couple of years ago, but it's a resilient community, and they've really rallied around these kids, and it's been fun to be a part of.
And can you tell everybody, I know this because I talked to a couple of people, but you have on the front of your jerseys sometimes Ohana, Ohana, and what is the history of that?
That was from a previous coach, and it just means family.
Okay.
And we're big, on creating kind of a family culture and everything like that.
Texas High was number 5 in the state. You beat them. Huntsville was number 4 in the state. You beat them. Fort Bend Marshall was number 3 in the state, and you took care of them. It's been a great run, Jerry. I hope you're enjoying the journey. I know you have to focus on what's next, and what's next is Liberty Hill. Great story. Thanks for your time, and good luck this week.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me.
That's, again, Jerry Prieto. He was at Veterans Memorial. What a great run they've made. That's also a kind of a unique. They're 13-0. They play Cedar Park this week. And you leave a program, they're in the semifinals. You go to another program, and their first semifinals appearance since 2014, and only 3rd in the history of the program. The other one being when they played for a state title, lost in 1960. Jeff Reardon was the head coach. He's now the head coach at Chapel Hill.
Was Jeff Reardon the ex-MLB reliever with a beard?
No.
He had a great beard.
Jeff Reardon was a coordinator on Sulphur Springs team that won the state championship with a kid named Tyrick Rollison as a quarterback. Remember that name, Craig?
Yep. Went to Auburn, didn't do anything.
Did not do anything at all. All right, when we come back, the 5 o'clock hour includes John Machota. We're going to light up. We hope to hear from you as well. 254-339-1122 on the text line. Matt in D.C. earlier text. We're ready for, what did Bryce Petty? We're ready for OU. What was that? You kept saying that one year.
Just ready for OU.
We're just ready for OU. With OU and Baylor basketball tonight at the Farrell Center. 8 o'clock is the tip. Armstrong Sims running the mothership. 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, you'll have Up-Tempo. They start at 11, went until 2. And every Monday through Friday, we're up and going from 3 until 6. This is SicEm365 Radio.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Steve Chapman gifted us for Christmas some of their special bottles of the single cask Balcones single malt that was just you can get at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. I'm not sure what their stock is there, but they had it. It was great. They have only the best at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, and whether it's stuff that maybe you can't find in every part of the country, or it's stuff that you didn't know that you even liked, they'll give you great recommendations. If you like craft beer, Riverbend Liquor and Wine is where you have to go. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, a hidden gem in Waco. Find out more on their Facebook page and Instagram to see all this information. Again, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street for Riverbend Liquor and Wine.
MP Electric has developed a quality-oriented electrical contracting service in more than 20 years in the industry. Led by President Mark Perry, our electricians go through a 5-year apprenticeship program, are licensed by the state of Texas, and getting continuous education annually upon renewal. In great part, the success of MP Electric lies with its management and professional expertise of its employees. All of our employees share a dedication to quality and commitment to serving the needs of our customers. For new construction and remodels, parking lot, lighting and surge protection, landscape lights, security lights, troubleshooting and repairs. For industrial manufacturing, food and beverage, paper and publishing, heavy industry, cement and rock crushing plants, water distribution plants, and utilities. For 20 years, MP Electric has serviced industrial, commercial, and residential products. We do service right. MP Electric Inc. at 1890 Galaxy Road, Waco. MPElectricusa.com.
It's a new year. Time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Hi, this is David Smoak, including what you'll need to watch the NFL playoffs and Super Bowl. Ribs, sausage, links, brisket, chicken wings, bags of various snacks, and customized appetizer trays. Don't forget to order something now for the perfect home-cooked Valentine's Day dinner, which is closer than you think, including combo packs with ribeyes, fillets, and lobster tails. Live crawfish season is just around the corner. Absolutely the right time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Waco Custom Marketplace, your family meat market, butcher shop and bakery with everything baked fresh with old-fashioned farmers market atmosphere. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Learning to navigate life in the COVID-19 world has been a struggle, and where and how to get tested has been one of the biggest challenges. Impact Health Labs has your answer. If you need mass testing for your office, church, dormitory, or school, Impact Health Labs is who to call. They will come to you, conduct the testing at your location, and have the test back within 24 hours. Most major insurance accepted, meaning your out-of-pocket cost is low. So no more waiting by the phone for days to find out the results. Impact Health Labs was founded by 3 Army licensed and credentialed medical professionals. They believe in accuracy, efficiency, and doing the job right. Call 254-744-6233 to set up your group screening today. Impact Health Labs, on-site, prompt, and accurate, taking COVID-19 head-on. Again, that number is 254-744-6233 or online at impacthealthlabs.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with John Machota of The Athletic, brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Makes it 3rd and 16, and the pass is caught. Wow, that's a heck of a catch. 4th down. Let's see if he caught this. Yeah, it's close. I don't know.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments, with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. This 5 o'clock hour, SicEm365 Radio, and joined by John Machota. He covers the Cowboys, theathletic.com. Joins us on Wednesdays at 5. John, what happens first? They sign Dak, or they fire the defensive coordinator, or is something else going to get in between that?
Yeah, those are both at the top of the list there. I would say they'll probably go through some more meetings over the next week or so, and then I think there'll be a change with their defensive coordinator before there's a new deal with Dak. But I think both of them are coming up within the next 2 months. I would think both of them get figured out. But yeah, I just feel like you have to make that move with the defensive coordinator and make some moves on the defensive staff, because even with everything that happened this year with the pandemic and injuries, they're just, I don't know how you can keep going in this same direction. I'm sure, they're going to evaluate all this and factor in that they were able to get more takeaways during those last 4 games of the season, and maybe they were heading in the right direction. But I think when it's ultimately said and done, just going off of what Jerry Jones has said publicly over the last, 3-4 weeks, it just certainly doesn't seem like next season Mike Nolan's going to be their defensive coordinator.
No, he's mentioned about, that they shouldn't have maybe jumped into the scheme that they were in and all that. And John, I can't think of one defensive move that they made that went right.
Yeah, it really, and the ones that did end up working out for him, I think you can come away from this season feeling pretty good about Donovan Wilson being one of your starting safeties. But even that, they went into the season, they went into the offseason thinking that they were going to have Ha-Ha Clinton-Dix, and then obviously Darian Thompson was in the mix. And now I think that you found out that Donovan Wilson's the guy there. And then obviously Trayvon Diggs being the player that he's been. And, he's had some up and down moments, but ultimately it looks like they got a pretty good corner there. But outside of that, I think it was a mistake to be trying to be more multiple and having more 3-4 looks with DeMarcus Lawrence. I think when they evaluate that this offseason, they're gonna get rid of that. I just don't see how that's a fit for what your best player does. And so, Jerry admitted it as much, two mornings ago when he said, we were too ambitious with all the changes that they were going to make on defense in a year that there was a pandemic. And I would argue, even if there wasn't a pandemic, I don't know that everything would have went that smoothly just from making the transition that they wanted to from the defense they were before to what they ultimately were going to be. And I just don't know that they have the right personnel for that. So big offense for that side. Big offseason for that side of the ball, because I don't see how you get through this draft without it not being a very defensive heavy draft.
John, if you could go back in a time machine, knowing what you know about this team, if you could have, already known what this team was going to look like, do you still draft CeeDee Lamb in the first round, or do you maybe go with a defensive player?
No, I still would have drafted CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if there was a defensive player there that would make the impact that he made this year on offense and probably will make for well beyond. I fully expect CeeDee Lamb to be here for well beyond his rookie contract. And I don't know that the defensive players that were there. Obviously, Caleb on Chase on the edge rusher from LSU would have been the other guy. But that could have been a situation if you really would have went that direction that you might have even gone deeper into the 3-4 looks, because I think he's a little bit better fit there. And again, I just don't believe that that's the right direction as long as DeMarcus Lawrence is on this roster. And so I don't. And I think that they kind of, if there was one positive from 2020 is I think they drafted pretty well. I think getting Trayvon Diggs in the second round, let's say he would have been their first round pick in the season he had. Again, like I said earlier, he had ups and downs, but I think you felt pretty good coming away with Trayvon Diggs, even if he was your first round pick, and they got him in the second round. And then even Neville Gallimore getting more and more playing time. He looks like he'll be one of your starters at defensive tackle next year. Tyler Biadasz, if they can repeat and have another draft like that, but with more players on the defensive side of the ball, I think they'll be in good shape. So I wouldn't do over the CeeDee Lamb pick. I think that I think he was a great pick at the time, and everything he's shown, even with some of the drops he had down the stretch, I still think the ceiling for him is just ridiculously high.
You saw a story that someone wrote a story on theathletic.com. Inside Earl Thomas's split with Seahawks, Ravens, what? And you read and mentioned this is some of the background when there were backlash because the Cowboys did not go after Earl Thomas on what seemed like 2, 3, 5 different occasions. What was the gist of that story, John, that kind of put things, and Mike McCarthy's quote, you can say it on the air if you want to since we're not radio, but that kind of summed it up, right?
Oh, absolutely. So basically my big takeaways from that were, one, the behind the scenes with Earl Thomas in Baltimore was not good. And if you follow it back to when he first was with Seattle early in his career and they won the Super Bowl, it really painted the picture that Earl Thomas at that time with Seattle was similar to the way that I look at Sean Lee with this Cowboys team, in the sense that if you were to go to the facility early in the morning, he would probably be the first guy there. And if you're there late at night, he'd probably be one of the last guys there. And I think that's how Earl was early with Seattle. It wasn't really that in his time in Baltimore, including an interesting little anecdote in there. They talk about after one of their games, instead of going back with the team to watch the film the next day and have meetings because they were about to go in their bye week, he ended up going to Las Vegas. And so that didn't sit well with John Harbaugh and the Ravens coaching. So there was already that stuff. And then the other part of it is you factor in that his play had dropped off significantly. And a lot of the stuff that he got away with in Seattle, he could freelance a little bit more because he was just such a freak athlete. And even if he wasn't in the best position, he was just a playmaker because he just had a nose for the ball. Well, that started dropping off with Baltimore, and he really started rubbing teammates the wrong way too. So it wasn't like he was this big time leader behind the scenes. And so I'm reading all that, and I'm like, yeah, that would not have been a fit with this Cowboys team with the issues they had on defense, especially early in the year when they weren't buying into Mike Nolan's scheme. There were times where guys were doing things that, all the guys weren't on the same page. So why would you throw that guy in the mix? And then on top of it, we saw multiple games this year from the defense where there was questions about effort and the way that they finished some of these games. And just you read that article, and I just don't know how you could come away thinking Earl Thomas would have been a good fit. And that's even before you had to factor in what you'd have to pay him. But no, the reason I tweeted it out, the Mike McCarthy quote, is because I just thought it was interesting because, he obviously have a say in if they'd want Earl Thomas. And it just said in the article that basically some former Packers players that played for Mike McCarthy said that he has said on multiple occasions, he's used this quote, when your bullshit quotient exceeds your production, you are gone. And that's not just a Mike McCarthy thing. That's
right.
That's sports. That is absolutely sports. When teams will put up with a lot of stuff, you showing up late, you not coming to meetings, you not being a good teammate. When on Sundays you ball out and you score touchdowns and you're the best player on the team or one of the best players, and you give your a team a better chance to win on Sundays, they'll put up with a lot of that stuff. But when then you're not doing that stuff and you act that way off the field, they're ready to move on from you. And that certainly sounds like the case here. And hey, this isn't just a Cowboys thing. This is obviously across the league because if it wasn't, Earl Thomas would have been on some team.
Yeah.
He wasn't on any team this year.
Yeah, no question. I love the quote, though. And it's so true. No question.
All right, John, true or false, Jalen Smith is a Cowboy next year?
I thought a little bit about him when I tweeted out that quote. I'll tell you that I think there's a good chance he is because of the contract, but I don't think anybody should be surprised if they were ready to move on from him in terms of his production. I mean, he can say after the game, turn on the tape, and everybody can go back and watch the tape. I don't know that he wants people to go back and watch his tape. I just don't know that that's really something you want. I understand people will point out, hey, he had a career high in tackles, and he's one of the top tacklers in the league. Yeah, that's a lot of 7-8 yards down the field. That's a lot of 3-yard stops on 3rd and 1. And then just the celebrating. I can't believe that a guy could celebrate that much on a defense that was as bad as this defense was this year. I don't know. This year we didn't get to be behind the scenes obviously as much as we normally do. But I don't think anybody should be surprised if they found a way to move on from him. And really, to be honest with you, as much as people are critical of the contract that Zeke got because you shouldn't pay running backs, I don't think you should be paying linebackers either. Go find another Anthony Hitchens. You don't need to spend big time. No one's asking. You don't need to have these game-changing linebackers to win in the NFL nowadays. To be honest with you, I need pass rush and I need elite corners that take the ball away. And so if I have some great linebackers, that's icing on the cake. But I don't need to build around that with some high dollar guy. And so if they were to move on from him, obviously it would hurt them in terms of, I don't have the financials in front of me right now, but it's less than ideal. But I think you could also replace a guy like that with a younger guy that doesn't need to be a first round pick. It doesn't need to be Micah Parsons from Penn State. And I think you could get adequate production there. So I can't say for sure that he would be gone. I think that it's a less than, I would say there's probably about 75% chance he's back next year. Judging by how he sounded after the game, he thinks it's a 100% chance, but I think it's a little bit less than that.
How significant do you think the return of Kellen Moore is? Obviously, there was rumors about him maybe returning to Boise State, but he's going to stick around in Dallas.
Yeah, I think they're huge, specifically for Dak Prescott. This is obviously a guy that Dak, wants to be the offensive coordinator. That's one of the big reasons why Kellen was kept on staff is because of, how they've worked together and the fact that Dak was so open even before the season started about how he's very aware of the success these other top quarterbacks have had in the NFL. And one of the reasons they're able to do that is because there's a lot of continuity and stability that runs from season to season. A lot of the same play callers, a lot of the same guys, in place to keep that offense growing and continuing to get better and better. And so for that side of it, I just think that it's perfect for Dak, and that's your most important player on the entire team. He's the guy that you're working on getting a deal done with because you absolutely have to at this point, especially after seeing what happened this year. So why not make him as comfortable as possible? I look at, just not to get too far off track, but I just look at, for example, the Chargers, and they're going to go in a new direction with their coaching staff. And it's like, man, you have that season that Justin Herbert did with a young quarterback. I would be trying to keep as many guys around him on the coaching staff that led to him having this, what is going to be a rookie of the year season. Like, you want to keep that stuff together, keep that continuity together. And I think that's what Kellen Moore brings more than anything with Dak Prescott. So I think the Cowboys are very lucky to get him on a new 3-year deal.
Hey, man, we appreciate it, John. Thank you. Do you have a pick? Is it as easy as saying the Chiefs, or do you feel like maybe Buffalo or someone like that might give them some trouble? And the NFC, is it Green Bay? They have home field advantage, although that doesn't mean much this year because everyone played about 500 on the road or home.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for me to go against Patrick Mahomes. I just think that he's like magic. Like, there's something special about him, and then you just combine him with Andy Reid. I can't go against them, and I know it's tough to obviously repeat a Super Bowl chance, and so that probably won't happen. But I would be too tough for me to go against. And then for the Packers to lose their left tackle, Bakhtiari, that's just such a huge loss for them. That it helps them to have home field. And I think that they probably will do enough to get back to the Super Bowl. And obviously Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes, anything could happen. But I can't. I'm not picking against Patrick Mahomes. There's just no way. Thank you.
Happy New Year, John. Thank you very much. We appreciate you, John Machota, on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock in the Cowboys from theathletic.com. I was reading during the break Ryan Pugh and his bio at Troy. And I'm trying to, he was at LSU. That makes sense. Cincinnati before that. He's been various places. He, prior to Brigham Young, he spent 2 years at UT San Antonio, coaching the offensive line that scored the team's first ever bowl game in history, the 2016 New Mexico Bowl. I wonder where he was in 17. If it may have been, that's when he went to Brigham Young and was on staff with Grimes. I think he was. I think he left right before that 17 team because that would have been the UT San Antonio team that beat Baylor, if he was on that staff or not. Of course, everybody did, except Kansas that year.
Yeah. Yep, everybody did.
All right, coming up next, 254-339-1122. I had the poll that we put out, and it was the question about give Dave Aranda a letter grade like you would in class, A, B, C, D, or D and whatever. D and F would be combined. I would think that, Paul, I haven't looked at it in a long time. It was like 800 or 900, maybe 1,000 people who voted. Majority is going to be probably an 8, don't you think?
Yeah.
Everyone's pretty excited about these hires. Craig, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
What would be the next letter? Just obviously B because everyone's excited?
No, I think C because some people don't want to give it an F because they're not they don't want to be that negative, but some people are just, well, I'll wait and see.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with it.
And look, I put a poll up on the site on SicEm365, which was, are you fired up or time will tell? And time will tell did a lot better than I thought it would. So.
Well, a lot of people were excited about the guys they hired last year, and look how that worked out. So, I mean, teams get fired up every year for the new head coach they hire. And how many times do they, 3 years later, have to start getting fired up about another coaching search? So, I mean, everybody gets excited about changes. Everybody gets excited. Like, when change is needed, people get excited with something new. So it's not surprising that the overwhelming majority is positive, but, it's going to take time because I don't think anybody predicted, even the most negative of fans, that this coaching staff would be as much of a disaster offensively as it was this year.
Yeah, I think.
How could you when they had 8 returning starters?
Should I do? I mean, it's great to be excited, but I mean, for those people who get excited about everything, should I do the Paul Catalina seminar on how to just wait and see? Because, again, for any of my favorite teams to hire a coach, there's probably 3 guys on planet Earth that I would be like, oh, my God. Otherwise, I'm going to be like, we'll see.
Well,
I mean, let's see.
I mean, I don't want to keep people from being excited about things. I mean, I think that just what we saw last year was so bad that seeing something new is great. And then, you learn about the backgrounds and you see how it could work and all of that. So I totally get the excitement. As far as like knowing what it's actually going to look like, though, I mean, have no idea. And you know what? This has to work. This has to work for Dave Aranda. There's no other option because you can't go to the well of eliminating part of your coaching staff and kind of pointing at that as the reason for why you struggled. And then, 2 years from now, your offense is still struggling. Well, look, Dave Aranda's got an offense problem. Like, clearly, if that turns out to be the case. So you got to hope this works this time around.
But imagine the differences in just the apathy or just the, oh, God, if nothing had changed.
Well, no, you had to change.
And so that is part of the equation. We'll come back with the poll. A lot of your feedback on it. And also would love to get your feedback now at 254-339-1122. The lines are open. Your calls, comments, and opinions. And then as well, your thoughts as well on Baylor and Oklahoma tonight, men's basketball. Oklahoma and Baylor tonight, 8 o'clock at the Farrell Center. And Ashley and Chris will both be here in the postgame after Baylor, Oklahoma finishes up. That'll be late. That'll be a late night. Ashley's already here in studio. He's studying up. He's scouting Manic and Merrick, I think it is, and Umoja Gibson, the University High. He came down 5 years ago, started scouting Umoja, knowing that he would eventually play on a Big 12 team against Baylor. He's picking the brain of Jerome Tang, who was with us earlier today. King McClure, this is SicEm365 Radio. Ideal MRI, the title sponsor of this show. On average, an MRI will cost you over $1,100, which means some are less, but some are even much, much more. On average, an MRI costs over $1,100, and every time you go to Ideal MRI in the Central Texas Marketplace in Waco, it's $497 or less. Not on occasion. It's $497 or less every time. They will also help you with any other cost that you want to get covered through your insurance. And even if you need some help with them as well, they'll find a way financially to make it something you can do. Because if you have to get an MRI, it's because something is hurting you. Something is painful. It's whether a torn muscle or something of a ligament or maybe a bone. Something hurts where you can't sleep or function, and they want to make sure they know exactly what it is. So if your doctor brings up that you need to get an MRI, ask them about Ideal MRI, and they will know. They know that they'll get a great, beautiful picture of whatever that is that's not so beautiful, the pain that's causing you in your shoulder, your leg, your back, or somewhere else. At Ideal MRI with state-of-the-art technology, their MRI machine is phenomenal. I have been inside of it to check out my left shoulder. By the end of that afternoon, I got a call from Dr. Rob Maxey, who went over the results with me. And then my doctor, Dr. David Haynes with Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, had a copy of it as well for him to look at. It was perfect. And as far as the clarity, the picture you would want at Ideal MRI, $497 or less every time. And on average, an MRI is $1,100 or more. IdealMRI.com.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations, will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Bird Culchin Ford has been in Waco since 1936. Ford, the #1 selling truck in Texas, 43 years running. And Bird Culchin Ford proudly supports high school football in Central Texas. And no better way to tailgate with a Ford than from Bird Culchin Ford. And are there better vehicles to tailgate with than the Ford F-150 or the Ford Expedition? And of course, you can get them new pre-owned Bird Culchin Ford. Our sponsor of the Ford Tough Player of the Week, locally owned dealership, online at bkford.com, at 1701 West Loop 340 in Waco. Bird Culchin Ford.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. Are you a SicEm365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at SicEm365.com.
Ashley Hodge, Chris Fuentes tonight. Post-game, Oklahoma Baylor.
Are we ready for Fuentes to be on the air?
Oh, dear God, no.
I don't know. Like, is he... Are you going to have a 20-minute cool-down period like the players have to have? Like, he might have to have that, Ashley. For Chris in particular, like, I know you get fired up, but Chris, I mean, you've kind of injected him with fan steroids. Like, that guy, holy cow.
The only good news with Ashley now is he's not right behind the opponent's bench. He's in the corner, kind of shoved him off in the corner where there's a stairwell up to the next level, Farrell Center tonight, 8 o'clock.
I think the Big 12 officials might try to keep him there. Or the officials will try to keep him there once the pandemic's over. Like, we heard that guy cough. He's got to go up there.
I think that maybe by the end of the day Friday, this is not for certain by any means. We have not been told this, but there might be something where you either hear from Dave Aranda or Jeff Grimes, or maybe both. There's a possibility that could be set up by sometime on Friday. I think it's important you make the hire on Monday. You got to get out in front and let people see and hear from Jeff Grimes. Everything we've heard has been great, but you'd like to be able to ask him some questions. And also Dave Aranda about the coaching changes and what's the decision-making, which seemed like it's pretty obvious, but that could happen by Friday. We'll see if it is. Of course, we'll have a lot of that here on SicEm365 Radio. So we can discuss this, and it's going to be part of the offseason, but 854 of you voted. What grade would you give Dave Aranda on the staff changes on the offensive side? 2.7% D or less. 4.1% a C. 95.2% A or B, with 74.7% being A. Is that the excitable fan thirsting for something new, or?
No, I think it's reasonable to give it an A. I mean, again, like where I would stop at getting, I'll call it the NFL draft rule. Like, look, just because your team drafts the fifth guy in the draft does not mean that he's going to transform your squad. That's unfair to put anything on that guy. But same thing with Coach Grimes. Like, it's a great hire and you can be excited about it. But again, he's got to fix things. I mean, you got to have expectations for him to actually fix it,
Yeah, I mean, clearly people think he will because, I mean, they're voting with an A. I think most of that's probably just fans being excited about, like we talked about earlier, just the need for change. You know, and I mean, look at it. The receivers were a non-factor this year outside of R.J. Sneed making a couple of SportsCenter top 10 catches. Outside of that, nobody did anything of substance. Nobody sniffed 1,000 yards. So you got a new wide receivers coach from Clemson, where they know a thing or two, and every year they have at least 2 studs on the roster. So, yes, the wide receivers should be better. The offensive coordinator position has to be better. There's not really, and I don't want to jinx this here, but there's not really any way to be worse than they were last year. The offensive line was the worst in college football that I saw easily by a mile. I didn't watch everybody. But you bear out the stats of the rankings, and there's maybe like 3 teams that are below them, and they're all, you know, terrible teams. So that had to change. And clearly, you know, it's kind of hard because those guys didn't have the full offseason and all of that. But at the same time, you know, if you have your OC and your passing game coordinator not getting along and that's causing strife or whatever, just changes had to be made. So I think everybody should be excited. You should be excited for, you know, a change that could be a positive. And, you know, if it turns out to be a negative, well, then we'll, you know, react to that when the shoe drops.
So, okay, I like everything you guys are saying. You know, again, I like the fact that he's got offensive line in his blood. Also, let me go back to what it was. Now, here are some of the responses, and we go to calls. He owned the problem, attempted to full fix. That's huge. The choices make logical sense, but we can't really know until we hear how the coaching room is. And ultimately, the greatest sign of success is if it isn't a scandal. And ultimately, the greatest sign of success is if it isn't a scandal. I don't understand.
That means that if there's no scandal, then he's done fine, I guess.
Oh, okay.
It's a pretty dang low bar.
A+, all seem to be good fits with the staff, Baylor, and strong recruiters across the board and teachers. A on paper, absolute home run hire with the offensive coach, our coordinator. Excellent offensive line and wide receiver hires. Strength and conditioning seems to be good. Haven't read up enough. Cohesion will be the key, but I love everything I'm hearing so far.
Hey, I'll give the strength and conditioning coach an A. I can't wait to meet him and thank him for 2013, the best year of my life.
Made sound picks with proven offensive credentials. I also think these are more of his guys versus staff of what others thought were good picks. Offensive line hire was big, high energy guy who played at a high level. I think it's going to be a real quarterback competition. Let's go. Here's from Alex. I think for me it stems from the offensive coordinator's job. Hiring a proven offensive coordinator with a long track history of success. Hard to get these guys because they are typically big bucks paid by Power 5 schools. It's true. Hiring a promising offensive coordinator with recent success, but only with the school quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a first-round draft pick at quarterback. I think that's what that's saying. So, you know, I would be hesitant to say, like, oh, like, he's going to make Jacob Zeno play as well as Zach Wilson playing. You know, like, that's part of the deal is, like, you got to be wary of – I mean, like, how many times do we see coaches get hired after some great run, but a lot of that great run was great players. You know what I mean? And they don't go off and do as well somewhere else or do as well with a promotion. So, I mean, you know, I think that every move that was made was a move that had to be made. Jeff Grimes just being this, you know, the sole play caller, and then obviously we'll have a passing game coordinator or whatever, but there was just no chemistry last year. I don't even know what we watched. I mean, honestly. I mean, you really think about, like, what did we watch on offense last year? Like 23 and outs and like 2 touchdown drives in the fourth quarter and a field goal drive at some point, like in the second quarter. That was basically Baylor offense every single week, if they could even put that together. But you had to make a change at OC. It's good to have one voice, even though he'll rely on others. Quarterbacks coach, I mean, Sean Bell, people have been screaming. I mean, there are people that, and I think it's insane, that wanted him to actually be the OC. I don't think he's, you know, I would tend to believe he's not quite there yet, but this is a move in the right direction, having him at the position he actually played, teaching up the quarterback. So that's a promotion. Obviously, Ryan Pugh's got a good background, and the offensive line can't get any worse. Tight ends have been a non-factor pretty much the last few years. I mean, even going back longer than that, you know, you had your occasional Jordan Iver catches or Laquan McGowan in a bowl game or whatever, but tight ends have basically been a non-factor as far as pass catching threats. And I liked what Matt Rule did. They were blockers. And I think one of the mistakes this past year, one that S11 pointed out quite a bit, was they didn't use their tight ends as blockers as much this year. Mm-hmm. And they needed all the blocking help that they could get. And I don't know why that was, but I think that we'll see with Jeff Grimes not only being the OC, but also having an O-line background and coaching the tight ends, that they're going to be factored in. And they were factored in at BYU. Wide receiver, I already mentioned that. And, I don't know so much about Corey Campbell and why they felt the need to make the change there, because they weren't given a full offseason. But, Vic Valoria is obviously a guy that Aranda has ties to. So you took guys from BYU, Troy, Clemson, and LSU.
But
all those programs,
and there's backgrounds with Auburn's included in that too. Yeah,
but immediately took them from those schools, and all those schools have had success. I know Troy's a little bit up and down, but I think it's a good mix of guys, and clearly guys that Aranda, like, what makes me feel confident about it is that Aranda hired these guys. He had the conversations with them, so I know he hired the last staff as well. But this, after having a year to reflect and kind of look at how just disjointed one side of the ball really was, I think that, he's probably going in with some clear direction as far as what exactly he's looking for this time around and what would work. And that gives me hope that these will be the right hires that'll be around for a while.
From Jane, I appreciate the sentiment, but until I see changes on the field, there's no way to fairly assess they live up to their perceived potential. It'll be an A park, out of the park A. One more thing. All are young, relatable to recruits, handpicked by Aranda, successful, can only be better than what we saw last year. It almost like we called our running plays thinking the sidelines were the touchdown lines. I'm hoping they can upgrade and develop offensive linemen. And there's more of you. Thank you for the responses. 54 of you voted in the poll.
All right, let's go to the Impact Health Labs caller line for your company's mass COVID testing, impacthealthlabs.com. T-Rex, you're on SicEm365 Radio.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. Great radio call today. Great guest as always. So appreciate the things to listen to on my way down to Waco right now to watch the basketball game, which thank God we have a basketball game tonight. Unfortunately, I was supposed to go to UConn tomorrow, but we adapt and overcome, and we're going to go beat Oklahoma instead. So in regards to the coaching, I think they're home run hires, but like everyone else is saying, that's at face value because we don't know until we see what actually happens. I'm really, though, excited not only for for all the coaches, but really excited about the O-line coach and the strength coach. I also would like to know why Corey was not kept on board in regards to strength, because did he really ever have a chance to have a program? I mean, if you've ever played football, you do some lifting during the season to stay healthy and stay loose and stay mobile and all that. You don't really work out the same as you would in the spring. So who knows? I would love to have been a fly on the wall during that conversation just to know what was going on. But, it doesn't matter. We got to move forward. So I love the new strength coach we got. I always think your strength coach should look the part. And every day is clearly shrug day for that guy. I mean, you look at those shoulders, you look at those traps, that guy clearly lives in the weight room. Yep. So I think our offensive linemen are going to really benefit from that, which brings me to my next point. Is I'm super excited for this coach from the O-line, because if you watch that video that Colt put out, I believe 2 days ago or a day ago, that coach demands physicality. And I think that's something that we've lacked for a while from our offensive line. Now, obviously, you still got to have some skill. You got to have some talent. You got to have size. You can't build height, right? That's the thing. People always say, like, you can put pounds on. You can get a guy in the kitchen, and feed him and get him in the weight room, but you can't grow his height. So we got to get guys who are, fit the role that we can build upon. You got to have a foundation in place. So that's going to take some time. I think our fan base needs to realize it's going to take some time to get those foundation pieces in across all 5 positions as well as their backup. I want our second team to be, able to start at a grade 5 school. I think that's how your offensive line should be, but that's just wishing for, shooting for the stars and landing on the moon, hopefully. But that guy demands physicality. If you ever played offensive line, you'll know that the best offensive line coaches you ever had were the ones who demanded physicality. I was lucky enough to play under, Leroy Coleman my senior year at La Vega. Everyone knows him, Central Texas. That man, nicest person in the world, but he demanded physicality. Mason Miller was my coach at McMurray. He's now the offensive coordinator at Mississippi State. That man demanded physicality. If your offensive line coach doesn't demand physicality, your offensive line won't have physicality. So, and that's the biggest thing we've lacked. You can be 6'8", 330 pounds, but when a 225-pound defensive lineman hits you in the face, what are you going to do about it? So, give the staff time to build our guys up and get the right guys in. But just know that next year, at the first kickoff, and the first play, first snap next year, I have a good feeling that our offensive line is going to come out and put a hat on somebody and drop somebody into the ground and do it all day long. We may not win 10 games, but as long as we're driving guys into the ground and giving our quarterback time and opening holes for our running back, that's all we can take for now. So give them a chance. I'm excited, and let's go beat the Sooners, Sic'em Bears. I'll see y'all tonight.
Thank you, T-Rex. Appreciate your call. As always, 254-339-1122. You could tell where he's pumped up about the offensive line. And, yeah, you know, one of the things that was always finally near the end, right before all hell broke loose, that people started to realize about the Baylor offense under Coach Briles was they would beat the hell out of you with their offensive line. They were big. They were men. They were third, fourth, fifth-year guys. JUCOs, transfers, move from guard to center, but they would hammer you, you know what, and lean on you and spread you out and wear you down, and they put up as many 300-yard games as you would from a team that is known for running the football.
And not with NFL talent either.
Very little. A lot of guys had a chance, but they didn't stick.
Spencer Dringo was like all Baylor everything, all-American everything, and he had a cup of coffee basically in the NFL. Kyle Fuller's been able to stick around for a few years, kind of, I don't know, he's been that weird – I thought he was kind of bouncing around for a little bit, but I mean, he's been able to maintain. But outside of that, I mean,
guys, a year or two, you know?
Yeah, like it's a year or two. And
Danny Watkins was gone.
And I don't think you have to go and have NFL success to be a successful college football program. But I think that if you're having NFL success, then you're probably a pretty good college program. So I'm very intrigued by the change on the O-line. You know, I don't know exactly what went wrong for Wickline, if it was a product of just the disorganization of the offense, or if it was the lack of an offseason, or maybe, just maybe, Baylor doesn't have very talented players on the O-line. You know, I think that's probably a product of it as well. I mean, if these were really good players, then I don't think you see an offensive line that's as bad as they were last year. I know a lot of different factors were involved with that, but no, Grimes seems like a guy who wants to be here. He wants to be back in Texas. He's been toasting being back in Texas ever since the announcement was made. I had a picture today of a Lone Star State coffee cup, and you got like the Utah mountains in the background, so he's still there, but will be making his way to Waco shortly. And like T-Rex said, what little I've heard from him, I like his attitude and his approach, and we know Aranda's going to be demanding. So, like I said earlier, I mean, he had to be very cool, calm, and calculated, and I think Dave Aranda is with any decision that he probably makes. I think he learned a lot from the decisions that were made last year in putting together the staff, and I'm sure he's adjusted accordingly. So this is going to be the group that kind of sinks or swims Aranda's head coaching stint at Baylor. I mean, think about it, guys. I'm not anywhere close to putting him on a hot seat, but like, if things don't change next year, you can't go wipe the offensive staff clean again and then start over a third time.
You cannot continue to change assistant coaches without eventually you becoming the one, if you don't succeed, to be the problem.
Ask the last three coaches at Texas.
Look, Tom Herman, I mean, he changed everybody for 3 years.
Matt Brown started doing that.
Yeah. Charlie Strong did it. All three, the last three, that's what they do.
So you can't do that. You can't do that. So you better hope that Jeff Grimes hits, and I think that he will, and you better hope that Ryan Pugh hits, and I think that he will. I like the hires. You know, I just want to go out and see it myself, but I think that everybody should be totally entitled to feel very optimistic and excited about the changes, and, you know, not worry so much about what it's going to look like, because if you're worrying about that right now, well, you got like another 8 months before we actually see that. So, we will see, but I'm excited to see the changes.
All right, 5:44, we take a break here. Come back with much more. The NFL has released a list of the teams and how they did when it comes to players in quarantine for COVID. What team? Which one did you hear in the news all the time? One team like affected an entire week or 3 of the NFL. Cleveland's had their problems and still do. Which were the ones that struggled the most, and which teams actually did the best? And where were the Cowboys in that list, or where are the Cowboys on that list? Plus more from you. 254-339-1122 and SicEm365 Radio.
At Baylor University, students find their place to shine. They're faithful friends and inspirational leaders. They're championship teammates and independent thinkers. They're on the cutting edge of high tech and in the halls of history. If you want to make the world a brighter place, you can. And if you want to shine in your own way, you can. The spark you need is already inside you. Bring it to Baylor, where lights shine bright.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
When it comes to hauling the family and hauling cargo, see Alan Samuels. Get the king of minivans, the award-winning Chrysler Pacifica, or America's lowest price third-row crossover, Dodge Journey. During the Big Finish event, get 0%, no payments for 90 days, and employee pricing for all on Pacifica. It's minivan first class. And get employee pricing for all on new 2020 Dodge Journeys. Happy holidays from your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingram at the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like instant issue debit cards free at all of our banking centers, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine has their easy-to-access drive-thru open and convenient and clean in-store location on the corner of Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. Riverbend Liquor has the best and most extensive variety of craft beer selections in Waco, and Balcones whiskey, including single malt, pot still, baby blue, rye, brimstone, and the all-new lineage in stock. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, family-owned and operated, and a hidden gem in Waco on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street. And find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. Call us on the Impact Health Labs caller line at 254-339-1122. For your company's mass COVID testing, log on to impacthealthlabs.com.
All right, here we go. This 5 o'clock hour, 5:48. Robert Boucher asking me about my vote on the Heisman Trophy and kind of why I had Lawrence ahead of either Mac Jones or Trask. There's a couple of things that sometimes stats are not everything. Clemson lost to Notre Dame earlier in the year, and even though the Clemson quarterback, and I cannot pronounce his name, had a big game yardage-wise, he threw for a couple of touchdowns, they lost that game without Trevor Lawrence. And I think that they proved in that rematch with Notre Dame that they're better.
Trevor ate them up.
Yes. So
I mean, he individually had a fantastic game.
Secondly, Mac Jones, I think if it wasn't for I really struggled with 2, 3, and 4. You guys know 2 and 3. I did. I struggled with really 2, 3, and 4. Trask put up huge numbers, but the LSU game, he threw a deadly pick. Mm-hmm. He threw 2 of them, and that doesn't mean the 4,000 plus yards or 30, 40 touchdowns he threw doesn't count, but that game kind of stuck with me. And against A&M, he actually played really well in that game. They just A&M had enough offense to win the game.
And then got completely whooped by Oklahoma and
well,
had
that can't count.
Atrocious game.
Yeah, and that doesn't count in my Heisman vote, though.
It was after.
See, that's that's why I think it's so stupid. Like, like, would you have named Kyle Trask the Heisman winner after the way he played against Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Like, that should factor in.
That's happened before, though. The National Football League will have an MVP they announce after the playoffs or sometime, right? And it will not count the playoffs. It's just the way that leagues and colleges have done it. It does. The postseason doesn't count.
Matter.
But I would
well,
say,
because
though,
they think of a championship more important than the individual stuff.
But yeah, also though, college football, just in their marketing, like the NFL is brilliant in their marketing in that they don't go a month without like making sure that you know that they're there.
Right.
Even when they're not playing, like there's a month of everything. For me, college football, like that can be your in addition to the, you can kind of get into the draft stuff of as soon as it's over, you got the Heisman Trophy, you've got all this stuff that rattles off. To me, I think that would be good for marketing too.
The conference, the Heisman Trophy was always the first or second weekend in December. The Army-Navy game would be a weekend. The championship weekend was about the same time, and then you had the Heisman Trophy kind of on its own. With I think at the time you'd have your Division I AA or FCS type schools playing, and it was not Trevor Lawrence over 3 years, because it's not a commutative trophy. It was because when he didn't play, they lost. I think Trevor Lawrence also, there's a sneaky number with him. He scored 8 rushing touchdowns. The others were not a threat at all running the football. That doesn't mean it was like he was Lamar Jackson. I'm not trying to say that. That's just my pick of why the numbers of Trask and Jones, to me, were countered by what Trevor Lawrence did at Clemson.
I think it's hard to judge Mac Jones for me personally. I mean, I would have him in my top 4 or 5 or whatever, but, I mean, how good is he? Like, if you went and placed him on another team, and I know you could say that about everybody, like, how good is Trevor? But I think we can all agree, you go place Trevor Lawrence on pretty much any team, they're automatically way better. And maybe that's also the case with Mac Jones. I don't know, though, because he was throwing to a Heisman-winning wide receiver, handing off to a Heisman finalist running back, had a Heisman probably finalist wide receiver lose earlier in the year and, like, not miss a beat, has an offensive line where he hardly ever has to worry about, facing pressure. Like, he would be a totally different player behind Baylor's O-line, right? Like, everything around him is 5-star, everything. There's not a weakness. And so it's just, a little harder to judge him versus 2 of his own teammates on that side of the ball. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a little bit more difficult to determine, for me at least, but he's very good and will probably be a heavy favorite to win it next year.
Yeah, we'll see. And you're right. You look around, there's weapons everywhere. NBA noted, and Paul has his 5 graphic we have up. Luka Doncic, a couple of days ago, he was the first player with a 30-point, 15-rebound, 10-assist, triple-double since he did that in August. And he was the first player in August to do it since he did that in March. 30 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, plus in any of those particular categories. So he's got a boom. Doncic, who was it before? Doncic. Before that was Doncic. As Luka Doncic in the Mavericks, he had a huge game. And so he continues to kind of a trend of what he can do. All right, Paul.
All right, our top 5 today. Top 5 Cowboys targets in for the NFL draft. According to me, this is who I would like to see, based on my hours and hours of film study. Number 1, Patrick Surtain, the second from Alabama, the cornerback. Huge area of need. You pair him, and this is an ideal situation for me. You pair him with Trayvon Diggs. They played together last year at Alabama. You got 2 Bama corners. Much like the Washington football team has a couple of Bama defensive linemen, I don't think you can go wrong there. If Patrick Surtain's not there, J.C. Horn, and these guys are both sons of, by the way, Patrick Surtain II, obviously his dad, Patrick Surtain, longtime Dolphins cornerback. J.C. Horn, son of former Saints wide receiver Joe Horn, at quarterback from South Carolina, played in a Will Muschamp defense. Will Muschamp didn't get fired at South Carolina because they couldn't stop people. Usually they could. They just couldn't score enough based on how much they stopped people. When you only score 13 points a game, you're going to get fired. But J.C. Horn, a big part of that defense. Number 3, and I know that John Machota said they don't necessarily need to do this. I would still love to see them get this guy if they could. Micah Parsons, linebacker, Penn State, hasn't played this year. He opted out to work towards the draft. Makes me a little bit nervous, but even still, he only played 6 games anyway, maybe 5. I think Penn State only got in 5 because they had 1 canceled. Number 4, and this is maybe a much bigger area of need than linebacker, defensive tackle. Christian Barmore from Alabama is the highest rated one going into the draft. Defensive tackle is something I want to see them draft 2 of throughout the draft. And number 5, Shaun Wade, DB at Ohio State. I think he can play corner and safety, flex around. They have a lot of needs in that secondary, guys.
All right.
Yeah, they do. They got a lot of needs on that side of the football. So that's I noticed you go all defense, all pretty good programs as well. I mean, like you said, you can't really – I mean, there's been some folks go wrong with Alabama guys, but those are few and far between. And, I'd be happy with any of those players if I was Dallas.
Barmore looks like all the other ones. 2 of them, as you know, start at Washington. Allen and who's the other one?
Teron Payne.
Payne. And look what they've done. There's a really interesting story on theathletic.com, I think it was, about Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio teaming up with the defense and what Del Rio brought to the table, who was out of the business when Rivera got the job in Washington.
By the way, I'll take suggestions on this from anybody, our listeners or anything. You want to see me do a top 5 on something, I'll do it.
Yeah, tweet at him at Paul Catalina or our text line, 254-339-1122. And of course, in any other ways. It's been a really bizarre day, right, in this country. It's been a crazy day with what's going on in Washington, D.C. And we hope that we gave you 3 hours to get away from what is happening or what has happened or all the opinions and all the nightmarish day that it's been in Washington, D.C. But hopefully what we can do on occasion is help you get away from the day's reality, whether it's your day or the country's day or anybody's day. You know what the hardest part about today was for me when it comes to the scene in Washington? How quickly the Capitol was taken over.
Yeah, a lot of people have commented on that. No, it's a terrible day for this country. It's embarrassing. We are not what we thought we ever were. I don't know. I didn't even want to speak about it very much.
Yeah, we tried to, not because we weren't paying attention, but still.
No, but to your point, like that was alarming that it was so easy, but, nothing really surprises me anymore.
So we'll see how that works out. Everyone has an opinion on it. We hope that you enjoyed who we had, what we had, and what we discussed. Again, Baylor and Oklahoma tonight, 8 o'clock the tip at the Farrell Center. Post-game, Ashley and Chris will be a part of it. Thanks to our guest, Jerome Tang. He was fantastic as always. Mike Ducey, King McClure, Dave Wilson, Jerry Prieto of Crosby Football, and I noticed that they followed us and also retweeted our story, and John Machota from theathletic.com, plus a little bit from Scott Drew, Paul's 5, Craig's comments and opinions. Back at it tomorrow. Joe DeLamielleure, Buffalo Bills Hall of Fame offensive lineman, one of our guests. I'm David Smoak. Thank you for listening whenever you do, watching whenever you can, however long it might be, and Armstrong Sims.
Do a top 5 of Armstrong's best moments on the show, Paul. How about that?
I'll do it.
We might even do a top 5 of the greatest movies Armstrong has never seen.
Yeah.
That might be one.
That might be Friday. I just might do that Friday.
This is SicEm365 Radio. Have a great night.
MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Born in Waco, Brotherwell Brewing exists to serve the Central Texas community with locally crafted beer of the highest quality. They want to bring Central Texas closer to the brewing experience so everyone can enjoy well-made beer as much as they do. For 2.5 years, they've been bringing high-quality beer to Central Texas at their location on Bridge Street in East Waco. And this football season, you need to stop by on game day for
curbside pickup, or stop by their tent next to Sic'em365 at Brazos Parking for your pregame refreshment. Brotherwell Brewing believes in community and bringing people together to enjoy products made in their community. So for your game day, whether it's a tailgate or at home, stop by Brotherwell Brewing for high-quality craft beer made right here in Central Texas, 400 East Bridge Street, and check them out online at brotherwell.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has been proudly serving Texans across the state for over 60 years. Call 254-772-8090 to find an agent who will provide a free review of your auto, home, and life coverage.
Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physician of Baylor Athletics. Our doctors specialize in the diagnosis and treatment of any and all sports-related injuries, celebrating over a decade of service in Central Texas. Our doctors are equipped to handle a wide range of issues, whether it's your foot or ankle, orthopedic spine care, your hand or wrist, knee and shoulder pain, or if you're in need of our arthritis or total joint clinic. Come see us at the new Baylor Scott and White Ted and Sue Getterman Sports and Orthopedic Center. Trusted doctors at Baylor Trust, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. Our goal is to get you back in the game.